Halloween, everybody. Kevin J. Johnston here. This is the Real Estate and Money Show. We have episode 39 tonight, Acts, Laws, and Lies. And we're going to talk to you about the differences between acts and laws and how acts and laws pertain to you and we, the people in Canada. We'll talk a little bit about American stuff tonight as well for all of our American fans who'd like to join us here on Thursday nights. I want to say thank you to everyone for being here tonight. It's lovely to see you all again. Why are you watching this show? You should be giving out candy, should you not? Or maybe staying at home eating the candy that you didn't give away. By the way, could everyone let me know in the chat room tonight how many kids are coming by? I always remember when I was growing up, especially in the Toronto area, there would be hundreds of kids on the street in costumes trick-or-treating. And the last time I was in the province of Ontario, that's about 4 years ago now, I don't think that there was anything more than about 20 kids that were out for the entire night. It was actually pretty depressing. So I'm hoping that we can find some way to get our culture back. I can tell you, I'm down here in Panama City, and they've had Halloween decorations up since beginning of September. And they've also got the Christmas decorations up now here in Panama City. So I'm looking forward to seeing the big celebrations that we have also in Panama. 5 national holidays I intend to enjoy. Day of the Dead is going to be on the 2nd. They've got National Flag Day. They love their flag here. They do not step on, spit on, wipe your nose with, or burn the Panamanian flag here in Panama. You're going to get worked over something fierce. So don't ever do that. They've got Flag Day. They have Independence Day from Colombia. They have Independence Day from Spain. Also celebration of the end of the American occupation. So there is nothing but parties. And I'm going to go and take a couple of days off and enjoy Panamanian parties this November. As this country's been very good to me. I've now been in Panama for 7 months, and I honestly have no desire to leave. Not any desire whatsoever. So we're going to cover quite a bit tonight in reference to tax. We're going to be covering a little bit about real estate and how real estate and taxes in Canada are conjoined and the best ways that you're going to have to combat everything that the Canada Revenue Agency is choosing to do to steal more and more money from you. So let's get into something that a lot of you don't know, and that is in Canada, there is something called the Taxpayers' Bill of Rights. And that Taxpayers' Bill of Rights has 16 clauses within it, all of which are protective of you and not the Canada Revenue Agency. Now, I just so happen to have the Taxpayers' Bill of Rights up and running here. And I want to cover them. I'm only going to cover 3 tonight. You can read them on your own. It's on canada.ca, the official website of the country of Canada. Hold on there. I just lost the link. There we go. There's only 3 clauses, and the most interesting of them all, there's an interesting one, there's a powerful one, and there's an absolutely awesome one. So let's go with the first one here, which is clause number 1. In Canada, your tax rights or taxpayers' rights are, you have the right to receive entitlements and pay no more and no less tax than is required by law. Now, in Canada, albeit there's kind of a rule, a guideline, a strictly, sternly enforced idea that you have to submit a tax return, but there's not a single law that says you actually have to give the Canada Revenue Agency any money. And I mean not one law. There is not one algorithm that shows how much you have to pay for tax in Canada. Yeah, go through it yourself. There's the Excise Tax Act in Canada. There's the Income Tax Act. There's the GST Act. And there is the Canada Revenue Agency Act. And not a single one of these acts actually illustrate to anyone about how much money you're going to have to pay the Canadian government. So clause 1 of the Taxpayers' Bill of Rights says you don't have to pay any more or any less tax than is required by law. But if there's no number that is required by law, then What are you guys giving the CRA money for? I want to cover that one a little bit more. Greg, thank you for the gifts, by the way. I appreciate that. And if you're watching on TikTok tonight, double fingers. Let's get the likes flying and everyone share. Please, same thing on Rumble. If I could get everybody hitting the thumbs up, please, which you'll see pretty much below the T in my name right here. The Taxpayers' Bill of Rights is great because when it issues the statement, you don't have to pay any tax except for what is defined by law, and then there is no law that states that you actually have to pay that tax, well, then I'm going to tell all of you, keep your money. Stop paying tax. But if you're going to stop paying income tax in Canada, you got to do it the right way. And you do it the right way by utilizing every single solitary form that the Canada Revenue Agency makes available to Canadians that will actually benefit them. And of course, I just so happen to know what all those forms are, and I utilize those forms to get people's tax bills down to zero legally. I've been asked the question a lot in relation to Clause 1 of the Taxpayers' Bill of Rights in Canada. If I don't have a house and I don't have a car and I don't have bank accounts and stocks and bonds, retirement plans, if I don't have any of that and I owe the CRA money, can they take any money from me? No. Now, especially if you don't have a bank account in Canada. And the only way that they would ever know if you have a bank account in the United States or Costa Rica or Panama or Grenada is if you tell them. All right. So Derek is asking me a question here. Is any of this possible when working for an employer that reports to CRA? Absolutely it is. Absolutely it is. If you're on a T4, I can absolutely wipe out your entire tax debt utilizing other forms that the CRA makes available to us. 100%. All right. So with you not having to pay tax, if you have no assets, you have nothing they can take, then don't pay. You don't have to pay. I've had numerous conversations with CRA representatives, and they're very upset with me, I might add, about the fact that I record my calls with them and, of course, put them up for the whole world to hear. And why would I not do that? Because all of you need to know that the CRA does not have any power whatsoever. So Clause 1 of the Taxpayers' Bill of Rights is going to protect you in that there's no law in Canada that says you have to give them money. They'll try to get it. If you've got a bank account in Canada, they'll try to get that. If you've got a house in Canada, they're not going to seize the house and sell it. They're going to put what's called a writ on the house, which is not even a lien. It's just a notification that you owe somebody some money. But if you file an appeal with the CRA, which of course I know how to do, and then we just go to a judge and say, listen, we've appealed this decision and we would like the writ lifted off the house, please. The judge will do it because the CRA did not ever use legal means to be able to put those writs on your property. Now, the next clause that I like is number 7. This one's fabulous. I love this one. Very powerful. You have the right, unless otherwise provided by law, not to pay income tax amounts in dispute before you've had an impartial review. So you have the right to not, I'm reading this verbatim. You have the right to not pay personal tax amounts in dispute until you've had an impartial review by the CRA, or if you've sent an appeal to the Tax Court of Canada until that court has issued its decision. Think about that. So if the CRA says, we assess you, we think that you owe us 100 grand, we can't prove it because we're losers, so we're going to say that you do and threaten you in the hopes that that you pay, which many people unfortunately do. So you appeal it and take it to court, which will buy you between a year and even 3 years to get to tax court to argue in tax court about the validity of the claim that the CRA is making that you owe money. And the worst thing that happens if you lose is that the CRA issues another assessment, which we then appeal. So the appeals go forever. Now, in that time, we can move your house out of your name into a numbered corporation, into a family trust. We can take all your money and move it into a corporate account somewhere else in the country, somewhere else in the world. We can, if the CRA knows about other properties that you might have, We can get those moved into other numbered corporations. We can move everything away so the CRA cannot get to it. And that's the advantage to objecting to anything at all that the CRA says. If the Canada Revenue Agency says you owe money, we object and we get you an appeal date. And that is what Clause 7 says. The tax bill is null and void until that impartial hearing can be had. All right, Deborah says, if your client has to go to court, do you go to court for them? Well, not for them, with them. Yes, you can put me down as your representative. Depending the judge, some judges really hate my guts because I see through the farce that is the court system. And some judges are impartial and they'll just let the whole thing go through. So if we lose, we just appeal that judge's decision and then we appeal whatever comes after that decision. Tax court in Canada is not a court, it's a tribunal, and the judge cannot issue monetary penalties against you. That's even on the website for it. Here's the other one too. I like this one very much. Taxpayers' Bill of Rights, Clause 15. This one is radical to the max, dude. Love this one. You have the right to be represented by a person of your choice. You can choose a person to represent you and get advice about your tax and benefit affairs. Once you authorize us to deal with this person, we can discuss your situation with your representative. Right, that's me. Even if the CRA says that I'm not allowed to represent people, and they've already pulled this crap with me. They sent me a letter saying I can't represent people, but they don't have the authority to tell me that, so too bad for them. Clause 15 of the Taxpayers' Bill of Rights in Canada states you can have me represent you in tax court or against the CRA or against any other body to do with taxes. There's also a ton of case law that says that I would be able to represent you in regular court, but regular court, it's too time consuming. I just don't have the time to do criminal cases or over the top large civil cases. They take forever. I wish I had the time of the day, but I truly don't. So I'm not going to be able to take on any cases like that. But if it's tax court, we absolutely can take it on. And I'm looking forward to taking it on. All right. So Taxpayers' Bill of Rights, I suggest strongly you read that. It is on the Canadian official government website. Please read it and enjoy it. Don't forget to share this video on TikTok and share everything out, if you could, please, on X and on Rumble. There's other social media platforms that we're on tonight, but they don't seem to be all that great, like Facebook, for example. Facebook is just junk these days. Here's a really good one. Is there any way to avoid paying true dope capital gains taxes on an American property? Well, the easy answer, my friend, is yes. You hire me. I'm going to answer that question with a question, which I don't like doing, but I'm going to. Why the hell, as a Canadian citizen, would you tell the Canadian government that you have a house in the United States? I'll wait. Of course you won't. Right? And if you have an accountant that says to you, well, you need to report it because I don't want to lose my license, then fire the guy. You got to ask two questions when you're hiring an accountant in Canada. One, do you believe that the CRA can pull your license? Two, if the CRA audits me, are you going to cooperate with the audit? If the answer is yes to both questions, that's a coward. They will screw you sideways. You got to get rid of them. It's a sad story. It really is a sad story, but I'm going to cover it anyway. A gentleman came to me. This guy makes a lot of money, owns a house in Arizona. His accountant in Canada, keep in mind, this gentleman does not make a penny in Canada. It's all in the United States. He actually has to travel to the USA 9 months a year and work within the borders of the United States. He only lives in Canada 3 months a year. The accountant asks him, do you have any property in the United States? Yes, a small 2-bedroom house in Arizona. The accountant asks him 10 times, are you sure? Are you sure you only have one property? Yes. And the accountant decided to, because he's a coward and he's only saving his own ass, is mark down that the client was actually earning revenue on that property, even though it wasn't a rental. He was living in it. The guy was living in it for 9 months of the year, and he was not renting it out for the other 3 because he didn't want to. The accountant screwed him by saying, yeah, CRA, he owns a property and he's renting it. But then the same accountant phones this client who's now mine, and I've got permission to tell this story, by the way, calls him up and says, you told me you only had 1 property in the United States. You've got 3. And the guy's questioning himself, saying, what are you talking? What? No, I've got only 1 house. No, but you've got 2 bank accounts that have more than 100 grand in them. So I have to count those as property, and I'm going to put all that down for the CRA to know about. I don't want to lose my license. The accountant hired a private investigator to investigate his own client to find out if the client had property in the United States and bank accounts, so that the accountant, who's supposed to work for the client, could then screw the client and snitch, telling the CRA about these properties. Think about that. I'm the exact opposite, everyone. If you've got a property in the United States of America, shut up about it. You can tell me about it because you're going to be in a client-solicitor privilege relationship with me. And I'm going to tell you, no, we're not reporting that. Why would I tell the CRA, the Canada Revenue Agency, that you have a house so that you can pay more tax? Remember that every single number that you put on a tax return in Canada is 100% voluntary. I have just recently put nothing but names and signatures on more than 20 tax returns for clients, at which point I then called the Canada Revenue Agency saying, I have just sent in all of these tax returns. They have no numbers on them, just my authorized signature and my client's name. That's it. And you're not going to get anything until the end of the fiscal year before December 31st. And that's how I buy my clients all the time in the world that we need to file their taxes properly. And I tell them, we are invoking clause 7, so you will not be adding any penalties of any kind. We don't owe anything until the reports are done. So here's the question I've got for you now is, if you voluntarily put stuff on a tax return, and if you were to only put your name and signature on a tax return with no numbers, and they accept it, then do you think that I'm correct? Or do you think that that coward accountant I just talked about is correct in reference to how much authority that the CRA actually has? You can all do this. In fact, all of you could submit tax returns all the time with just your name, social insurance number, and signature. No numbers, not even a 0. You could do that. It's legal. They'll accept it. They'll assess you, but that doesn't matter. An assessment is just a guess. And when they assess you, we appeal that. So 2-3 years down the road, we get a day in court, if you will, about their assessment. And they're going to have to prove to the court why they assessed you. If you put nothing on your tax return, nothing, and they assess you and you appeal it, you're going to win, because what the hell are they assessing it on? It's nothing. They just make it up. So I want all of you to stop fearing the Canada Revenue Agency and stop fearing all this paperwork. So if you are a Canadian citizen with property anywhere else in the world, shut up about the property. Say nothing about it. If you've got bank accounts in the United States, Grenada, Panama, wherever, be quiet. Don't even tell your family about it until, well, maybe write it down in your will for them so they know. But that's it. Stop talking about the things that you own. Capital gains also, I'll just reflect a bit more there, DRT boy, is that capital gains, there's no way for the Canada Revenue Agency to know that you've sold a property with a capital gain unless you tell them. That's it. It's none of their business. They say, well, you got to do it. Well, no, you don't. It's voluntary. You know, the CRA should thank their lucky stars that people even bother filling out tax returns these days. Everybody's broke. That's what's going on here. So if I am your tax guy and you've got a property, I'm not telling the CRA. I'm going to have a look at your property because the odds are pretty good that the property is not even in a place where it could be taxed anyway, especially if you're losing money on it. Simple things happen out there. One client bought a house, overpaid for it. The thing had water damage and mold. He had to fix the whole place up. And by the time he sold it, he lost $200,000. 200 grand that he lost. So we put all the invoices forward, and I called all these suppliers and everybody else who had actually worked on his place. And I told them, I need you to make sure that you have all the invoices that you sent my client. So we wrote off every expense and we wrote off the capital loss. Sometimes you lose in the gold market, in the housing market, in the antiques market. Sometimes you just lose. So that is when we report capital, but only losses. You never report a capital gain. It's pointless. There's no point, and there's no way for them to compel you to report it. They have no power to make you do so. Mverse is asking, why does the CRA get a copy of T4s and T5s? Because your employer is a coward and submits them. That's the only reason. Because your employer is a gutless jellyfish, spineless individual who thinks that they have to submit the T4, who thinks they actually have to put you on a T4 in the first place, and they don't. You got to remember, if you're an employer in Canada, if let's say Johnny, you're paying Johnny 100 grand a year. Let's actually work out what that tax rate would be. I'll do that right now. So $100,000 per year salary in the province of Ontario. The federal tax is $14,045. The provincial tax is going to be $7,000, and the Canada Pension Plan premium is going to be $5,200. So the tax rate is about 31.48%. Now, the federal tax and the provincial tax that the employer withdraws or holds back from you, he has to give that to the Canada Revenue. Well, he thinks he does. He chooses to give that to the Canada Revenue Agency. But then he also has to match that number from his own account. So in reality, he's not just given the CRA $14,000 federal tax, he's given the CRA $28,000 because he's got to double it. So if you're an employer, why would you do that? Why would you put anybody on a T4 salary? Put everybody on contract, everyone, make them register a numbered corporation, get a GST or an HST and a PST number so that they invoice you every week for what you owe them. They put their HST and GST on it, and that is an expense. So it's the perfect expense. And you can see there, the employer is now saving, what's he saving? 30 grand a year. You can do a lot with $30,000 if you don't have to give that up. So each and every one of you need to start registering your numbered corporations, which of course I can do for you, and invoicing your clients. Get the friggin' hell off of T4s. They're of no benefit. Larry asks a good question here. Can you apply for pension if you have not done your taxes? Just bring your taxes up to date there, Larry, and you can apply for pension. But you got to understand, in Canada. Now, I'll give you the example of my dear old mom. She's been dead now for a while, but dear old mom always thought that I was crazy not paying tax. She kept asking me, why are you not paying tax? You're not going to get a pension. I kept telling her, Ma, love you, but you're wrong. You are giving up between 20 and 30% of your salary every year. And I guarantee you that your pension is going to be less than $1,000 when you finally retire per month. So me, I get to keep the 100 grand a year that I make. I get to keep all of it, every penny of it. And you don't. And if I invest my money properly in gold, silver, property, in the last 5 to 10 years, crypto, if I'm investing it properly, I don't need a pension. I don't need a pension. Why would I want one? And of course, dear old mom, when she finally did go on Canada Pension Plan, ended up getting less than $950 a month. So, I mean, I had to. I said, hey, Ma, how much do you get every month on your pension? Ma, hey, Ma. And, you know, she got a bit upset with me and gave me, like, not a real slap in the face, but enough to know that I've been told. And dear old mom can slap me all she wants because, you know, it's my mom. right? But I was right. And she eventually admitted that I was right. But it's sad that she went paying taxes the entire time that I was alive while she was alive. So I watched her pay taxes for how long? I guess 46 years of my life, constantly paying taxes because she wanted the pension. And it's that I hate that word, pension. Pension. I want my pension. It's a nervous tick. All of you think the Canada Pension Plan is somehow going to benefit you. It's not. So I would say, let's get your tax bill to zero. Forget taxes altogether. Keep every penny you make. Buy crypto. Yeah. There's a good chance that XRP, for example, is going to be the digital currency of choice for Russia. Bitcoin is the currency of choice for El Salvador and Costa Rica. Countries around the world are adopting this stuff. So what is it that you're all waiting for? And why are you wanting to part with your money to the CRA when you could be investing it? So Larry, if you want Canada Pension Plan, just let me get your taxes up to date. It'll be minuscule what you get. But Larry, if I go back and redo your taxes for 10 years, then the odds are pretty good I can probably get you about half of all the money you've ever paid for 10 years back. Very, very high, in fact, because I know what I'm doing. Okay. Wilson, you're asking me about the United States. I don't do personal taxes in the United States, but I do purchase American corporations. So I've flipped the slide here. You can see if you have IRS debt and you run a corporation, if you've got state tax debt, if you've got bank loans, if you have credit card debt, that's all corporate in the United States, I will buy your corporation from you and completely take your IRS debt away from you so you don't have anything to worry about. I do the same thing in Canada, everybody. So I do all taxes in Canada. I do corporate taxes only in the United States. That'll change in time, everybody. But right now, it's only corporate in the United States. All right. Just checking your questions here. Marie asks, what if I'm a shareholder from father's estate from his company? He passed away years ago. Marie, that's I would need to understand the structure of the company. You own 10% of it. So if the company's profitable, then you can actually take dividends out. You weren't the original investor, so you can't really necessarily do a tax-free corporate withdrawal, but I can register you a numbered corporation. And what you can do is transfer your shares from your own name to your numbered corporation's name. And then your numbered corporation can take dividends weekly or bi-weekly or monthly. We can do that. And then all that money is going to go in your corporate account tax-free. That I can do for you. So if you have 10, 15, 20% of an estate and the corporation is still making money, then yes, I'm going to move your money away from your own personal name. Yeah. Marie, definitely get a hold of me. Kent, could you put my website address in the chat room, please, so that she can see it there on TikTok? And Bob, can you do the same thing here on Kick, please? I appreciate that. Thank you. All righty. So it's going through a couple things to do with Canadian law here. I want to talk about acts versus laws when it pertains to taxes. I'm not going to cover acts for medical and acts like the Highway Traffic Act of Ontario. I'm not going to cover that stuff. What I'm going to cover, though, is the difference between an act and a law when it comes to governing income taxes in Canada. So the difference between a law and an act in Canada, I'm going to read verbatim here from a lawyer's website. Not a very good lawyer, so I'm not going to credit the guy, but it says law implies a system of rules recognized by a country to regulate the actions of the citizens, so the entire country. On the other hand, an act is that segment of legislation that deals with specific circumstances and people. So many use the two legal terms interchangeably, but there is a notable difference between act and law, as the former is a subset of the latter. So what they're saying to you here is laws are for the entire country. It's for everybody. You know, don't kill people. Don't steal people's stuff. Don't commit acts of heinous violence You know what I'm getting at. Don't shoot people. These are laws. And the laws that we're talking about here, laws, they pertain to everyone, regardless of wealth, social standing, caste, religion, at least in theory, they're supposed to. Not in Canada, but that's the way it's supposed to work in theory. Whereas an act are a set of rules that are very specific to a very specific thing, such as the Income Tax Act is very specific to just income tax, but also even more specific to just what the Canada Revenue Agency is allowed to do. So the Income Tax Act really doesn't pertain to we the people. I've read the whole thing. I can tell you it's just a rule book for the Canada Revenue Agency as to what they can and cannot do. The Excise Tax Act just kind of expands upon it, whereas the Excise Tax Act is not just income tax, but it's all the other taxes that they collect, like corporate income tax, goods and services tax, and so on. But again, these acts they're not laws for the people. They do pertain to the CRA. So whenever the Canada Revenue Agency is quoting an act, they'll quote a very specific clause in an act that says, well, we're going to take your money because clause 125 subsection 3 says we can. But then you hire me and I send back a letter saying, oh yeah, but here's the 15 clauses that counter that. By the way, here's also clause 1, 7, and 15 of the Taxpayers' Bill of Rights that will counter that. Oh, and by the way, here's the criminal law on extortion, theft, intimidation, uttering threats, criminal harassment. There's all kinds of laws you're breaking. So these are the laws that I will quote to the CRA representatives who are stating that the act somehow warrants their god-awful behavior. So I wanted to just point out to all of you that the acts that the Canada Revenue Agency are referring, and I don't know what the acts are in the United States in reference to personal income tax. I have not studied it yet. All right, but the act, when the CRA is quoting it to any of you, it does not pertain to you. It's very similar to bylaws, municipal bylaws in Canada. They don't pertain to you. They only pertain to the people who work for the city. I have my company is Canmore Acquisitions Incorporated. My company has bylaws, right? They don't pertain to you. They pertain to anybody who works for my corporation. That's all that a bylaw is. It's just rules for an entity that you choose to be a part of. So you could choose to work for the city of Montreal or the city of Toronto or the city of New York. Well, New York, different story, but you can choose to work for these places, and then those bylaws of the city will pertain to you, but municipal bylaws are not laws. So we, the people, don't have to abide by any of them at all. Now, if a building, if you are in a government-owned building, like a municipally owned building, I've had this happen a lot to me back in the days. If you remember that COVID nonsense, I would go to public buildings and ask to talk to somebody to prove that there was anything, and they wouldn't do it. So I would get these 30-day bans from my hometown city hall, or from the Central Library, or from Toronto City Hall. They would say you're banned for 30 days, and I would show up exactly 24 hours later, and they'd say, "Wait, we banned you." I said, "Well, you did, but a ban from a municipal property can only last for 24 hours. That's it, because it's publicly funded. All right. Your tax dollars are not voluntary. They're taken through threat of, we're going to steal your house if you don't pay these taxes. So because it's publicly funded, the public has a lot of rights. So what I'm getting at is these bans, you can't go to City Hall for 30 days, not in Canada. It's 24 hours. The Canada Revenue Agency has recently told me, you can't represent people because we don't like you. You've hurt our feelings. Okay, but that's their policy. And their policy is not law. So they actually do not have the right to tell me that I cannot enact Clause 15 of the Taxpayers' Bill of Rights and represent my clients. They do not have the right to tell you, you can't hire me to represent you against the CRA. I've already sent my letter in. And if they keep this nonsense up, I'm just going to hit them with a huge lawsuit, and we'll drag this out in the courts, and it'll be incredibly embarrassing for them when we all find out that they are so afraid of me that they're going to try to ban me from communicating with them. Are you kidding me? Yeah, like that's good. Like that's going to happen. So I want you all to know just how many rights you truly do have. Laws pertain to everybody. An act pertains to one specific thing or one specific group with a very specific intent. And they have to be brought forward as a bill. They have to pass 3 readings in Parliament. Then they have to pass 3 readings in the Senate. Then they have to get royal assent from the king. And not a lot of them get that far, if you want the truth. They really don't. Tig Devil is asking how to get a hold of me. If somebody could please put my website address in the chat room there in TikTok, please. By all means, get a hold of me. Hit me up on the contact form. Got a couple more questions here. All right, Freebird says they give you fines if you don't get permits to build for your home. You have to follow their bylaws. Okay, again, when you are applying for a permit to get something done in a municipality in Canada, the best thing in the world to do, like the fastest way to get a permit like that done, because yeah, they will use the courts and they have unfortunately limited resources to fight you on that. But what they're doing is they are relying on the municipal act of the province that you're in Canada. So if you want, let's say, a swimming pool, and you only want your pool to be 20 feet long by 10 feet wide, you put forward an application for 60 feet by 50 feet, and they'll come back and they'll say, no, you can't have that, but you get their attention because it's so big, and then they will very rapidly get you the smaller one. You see, they're weirdos that work for government. If you say you want a huge pool, they'll give you a permit for a small one within a couple of days, because they're going to think, I showed him, that guy, who does he think he is? He wants a 60-foot pool. I limited him to 25 feet, but you only wanted to build a 20-footer. It really doesn't take all that much to get that kind of a thing done. So permits are something that you would apply for well in advance, 6 months at least in Canada. That's why I hate Canada so much. If you want a permit here in Panama City to build anything, you just grease the correct palm and you get a permit within a day. It takes a day to get a permit here to build a 1,000-foot tall skyscraper. A day. So some systems are just better than others. So Freebird, if you want to do something that requires a permit, always apply early and apply for something crazy big and let them knock it down for you a bit. And then when you eventually you'll end up getting what you want. I mean, I remember applying for a 12-foot high fence in my hometown of Mississauga, and they thought they just beat me down something fierce because they only approved 8 foot. But that's all I wanted was an 8-foot high fence, because the 4x4s I had ordered were 12 feet long. 4 feet was going to be underground and only 8 feet above the ground. And the plywood I was using for the fencing was 4 foot by 8 foot. So, I mean, they really showed me, didn't they? All right. Think about that. All right, Deborah. Thank you very much, Deborah, for putting my website address up. I appreciate that. DC says, I'm told the CRA has power to take my wages. They don't at all. Let me explain this one. And this is about Canadian cowardice. You can always count on Canadian businesses to do a couple of things. Number one, screw up customer service completely. Count on it. Number two, to be a complete gutless coward and cave into the demands of anyone who says they work for the government. The CRA, if they can't get you to do your taxes or pay your taxes, they will go to your employer and send your employer a requirement to pay letter. And your employer's on the letter, it'll say that if you don't pay us before paying your staff member, we may audit you. Well, so friggin' what if they do? So your employer is a coward and says, I don't want the trouble. Oh my God. So I'm going to steal money from my staff and give it to the CRA because they sent me an unlawful letter. That requirement to pay is not lawful. It's not a court order. It's not a legal command. So your employer could send a letter back saying, go straight to hell and go get a court order from a judge sitting in court wearing a gown. Your employer could say that. So if your employer is to do this to you, sue the employer and charge your employer criminally with theft. I'm serious. Just go right ahead and do it. Also contact me and I'll redo your taxes properly so that the garnishment order will go away. But your employer is a coward. So it's the employer that chooses to give that money to the CRA. If the CRA was to audit your employer just has to contact me and I'll get rid of the auditor. You don't have to cooperate with audits in Canada. They're a joke. Auditors have no power. They're just losers, all of them. So I get rid of auditors. That's what I do. If you're going to run a business in Canada, you should know this stuff. Yeah, and the biggest asset that you have as an employer are your staff. What are you thinking? Stealing money from your staff. What are you thinking? Especially if he's a highly skilled individual with a skill that's not easy to replace. You're going to give money away because you get a letter in the mail, not something served by a court officer or a police officer, not something with a judge's stamp on it, just a letter. But that's what the employers do. They're gutless. So sue your employer, charge your employer. Theft. There you go. Jackie's asking me if I know anything about Ireland. Well, I've got family in Ireland, but I've never been. I'd like to go. I might go next year. But I can tell you that Ireland's collapsing. That we know. I know that Irishmen need to stand up and become men again and clean up the mess that their government's made for them. But that's another topic for another day. All right. But I mean, for Irish taxes, no, I haven't studied Irish tax law at all. All right. Freebird says 20 years ago, we used to have fast track, but life is very different today. Well, life is different today because the average person kowtows and just caves in at the slightest indication of pressure. Now, I don't know what it is, man. When I was a kid, I just could not accept the fact that authority is a real thing. You know, what is it about a costume that has this word bylaw or peace officer or police? When you put that on, somehow you now are on duty, and now the universe understands that you have some kind of authority just because that stupid crap is on your body. I've always rejected that fundamentally. And I reject the fact that any human being has got power over me unless I willingly give it to them. And the only way to get power over me is to hire me. Now, because if the paycheck is really good, I'm going to do a lot for that paycheck. And if you want me to do something without paying me, you better point a loaded weapon at me and be prepared to kill. All right, that's just how it is. You'll get what you want so long as you have the weapon. God help you when you don't. So I'd like all of you to start thinking the exact same way. Kevin, if you ever want some cool custom TIG weld art, let me know. Yeah, TIG Devil, right behind me. This wall's kind of blank. I would love to get some cool stuff up there. So let me know. Let me know where you are. Contact me on my website, please. I'd love to talk with you for sure. And Chili Betty says she voted for Trump today. That's fantastic. If I have a small business in Canada, do I have to pay my tax? If it's a sole proprietorship, don't ever register those, by the way, please. Those are the dumbest things in the world to do. They are attached directly to your social insurance number. Yes, you can have a lot of write-offs, but in case you do get into financial difficulty with your business, you can't sell it because it's you. But if you have yourself a corporation, TIG Devil, get a hold of me. I do private seminars on how to never pay tax again. So you want to get a hold of me on that one for sure. All right. Jackie says, thank you. The nanas of Ireland are the ones standing up and being counted. Yeah, I know. Men aren't men anymore. Another topic for another day. Alrighty. I've been asked some pretty serious questions here. I was just going to go through a few of them. Mitch says, you're ignorant when it comes to crypto. I will have to start doing crypto shows, but not yet. I'll get some pros on to talk about crypto for you. JJ says, I guess I'll be incorporating. Yeah, JJ, get a hold of me. I'll take care of the incorporation. It takes 3 days. We'll get you that, get you the GST number, and I'll give you all the instructions that you need to protect every penny that you make, every single penny. Gina's asking, Kevin, would Royal Bank of Canada branch in Georgia, United States, report a mortgage to a Canadian? A mortgage a Canadian has to the CRA. It's a possibility, Gina, but what you've got to do is you got to go into the bank and talk to the branch manager and ask them if the RBC branch is franchised or corporately owned out of Canada or corporately owned out of the United States. Find that out, get a hold of me, and then we'll get you the answer that you're looking for. All right. What do you know, Kevin, about the vacant home tax? Well, let's read the article here. The vacant home tax declaration period for the 2024 tax year will open November 1st, tomorrow. The deadline to dispute your bill for the 2022 and 2023 taxation year is December 31st of this year. The vacant home tax program requires, all right? That word means we want you to volunteer. That's all that it means. The vacant home tax program requires homeowners in Toronto to let the city know if their property is occupied or vacant every year by making a declaration. The goal of the program is to increase the supply of housing by, threatening homeowners to make their vacant residential property available for rent or sale. So if you tell them, I own 2 houses, and I don't live in one, and nobody lives in one, I'm using it to store my collector antique guitars, they're going to say, nope, you got to rent it out. So why would you tell them that? It's just the city of Toronto. You don't tell city staff what you have. Are you kidding me? Owners who choose to keep their properties vacant are subject to a tax, with the revenue being allocated to the affordable housing initiatives. That's if you blab. But here's the other thing. That's also if you decide to put multiple homes in your own personal name, which is really stupid, by the way. Why would you do that? Nothing should be in your name. So if you want to avoid vacant home taxes anywhere in Canada and capital gains taxes anywhere in Canada, get a hold of me. I'm going to register a numbered corporation for you, and we're going to put that numbered corporation on the title of your home to completely protect it. And then that way, when they start asking you for taxes or declarations, just ignore them. That's what we do. We ignore them at that point. Especially if we declare in your corporate bylaws, when we register your corporation, we simply declare that it's a holding company. This company does not conduct business. Beautiful. How do you transfer title if you have a mortgage? Sneakily, you go to the properties branch on your own. Don't involve a lawyer. This is you. You're the owner of your house. You add the numbered corporation to title and just sit on it for a while, making sure that your mortgage has at least 5 years left on it. And then you sneakily and quietly remove you and don't say a word to the banks. What's the point? If they've already given you the mortgage, the lien's against the property, not you. So go ahead and make the switch, but keep your mouth shut. Don't tell people anything at all. And there's a lot of folks out there that will tell you all kinds of crazy stuff that you have to do. Yeah, everyone talks out of their asses because everybody wants to sound important. Here's one that really gets on my nerves. Is if you don't live in Canada anymore, you have to call the CRA and tell them. No, you don't. You just put down your income at $5,000 and that's the end of it. Send it in. They'll send you a carbon credit check. You don't tell them anything. It's none of their business that you may not be coming back. The advantage, if you do leave Canada, let's say you want to leave for 5, 10, 15, 20 years. The advantage to you by not declaring, I'm never coming back, is that you can open Canadian corporations and open Canadian bank accounts and do business in Canada, so long as you've got an agent to take care of stuff like a paralegal, for example, in Canada. You can do all this stuff. But if you sever all of your ties to the country, then you can't. Why listen to stupid people? If you start taking advice for life from your friends, they're not going to be your friends as soon as that advice goes wrong. So don't listen to dumbasses. That's all I can tell you on that. If you, let's say, however, you're going to get some contract, the United States, and they're going to say, I'm putting you on a 15-year contract. You must stay within the United States for this contract, and we'll pay you $250,000 a year. Are you going to say, yeah, I'll take that contract? At that point, you could sever your ties to Canada. And then when you return 15 years later after that contract's done, as a very wealthy person, you could declare yourself returning if you wanted to. But I'm telling everyone, it's no one's business what you're doing. So really, don't get on social media telling everyone, I just took a job in New York. Why would you do that? I don't get it. Why do people put photographs of their children on social media? You buy a new car and you show it off on social media. You sell your house and you brag. I bought it for $300,000. I sold it for $6 million. What a smart person I am. Why do you people do these things? Shut up about your personal lives. Stop talking. All right? Here, this is what you should do about your entire personal life.
What should you do if the Canada Revenue Agency calls you?
Shut up! Quiet! I said quiet! What's the matter? You deaf or something?
All right, that's what you should do. You got to be quiet. Stop talking. And I've covered this one before. I'm going to cover it again now. What should you do when a loved one dies? When do you contact the Canada Revenue Agency? 3 years after they're dead. Actually, not even when they're dead. 3 years after you've drained everything out. Once you've got the properties moved, the bank accounts emptied, the RSPs drained, once you've got all that done, then and only then do you report the person died. But the tax returns, you don't put numbers on them. The CRA is going to say, well, what did they earn? Well, nothing, you idiot. He's been dead for 3 years. So you put the name and social insurance number on it, sign it, put the word deceased right across it. Death certificate number, mail it in. Never tell the CRA that a loved one has died. They will send letter after letter after letter out the door. They're going to catch you when you're in a state of vulnerability, and you're going to be afraid of what they send. So again, shut up about your personal lives. Don't go on social media saying, Mommy died, Daddy died, my doggy died. Don't look for sympathy online from people that you don't know. It's going to cost you money. We don't live in private times anymore, and everybody out there wants one-upmanship on everybody else. So please stop talking. All right? Getting back to what I was saying earlier in the show about laws versus acts, everything to do with inheritance, everything to do with estates, everything to do with your personal tax, your corporate tax, your corporate income tax, your payroll tax, GST, they're not laws. None of them are laws. They are all acts. So the Canada Revenue Agency is lying to you, just like tonight's show was called Acts, Laws, and Lies. They are lying to you about the fact that you've got to do what these acts say. You truly do not have to do any of these things. You don't have to pay tax in Canada. You just got to report the stuff. Just get them off your back and give them the minimal amount. If you're worried about how to do a tax return to get rid of them, contact me. I'll take care of all your personal taxes. Here's a funny one for you. Did you know that you can submit 10 tax returns for yourself a day, every day, 365 days a year? Yeah. You can submit 3,650 tax returns if you wanted to. And the CRA would have to look at them all. You could send one in for $1 and then say, oh, what was I thinking? $1 trillion. Oh, what was I thinking? 100,000. Oh, 250. You could do this every single solitary day in Canada, and the CRA would have to scrutinize every single one. Could you imagine if 1 million Canadians started putting in 10 tax returns a day with different amounts? All right. Because when you sign the bottom, you would actually put a note on it. You could use masking tape or just white out or whatever else, and then write on it saying, may not be accurate, sign it, throw it in. And if they had to look at 3.5 to 4 million tax returns a month that were just bogus, they wouldn't have time to scrutinize anything or anyone. Now, somebody asked me what I was talking about 2 weeks ago when I said that there's a civil war taking place inside the Canada Revenue Agency right now. All right, we're going to talk about that. Some people may not like what I'm going to say here, but yeah, it's my show. And I've always chosen just to tell the truth on my own show because it's more fun than trying to make stuff up. All right. The Canada Revenue Agency officially has more people working for it than the Canadian military does. They had hired 30,000 diversity hires, people with intelligence quotients way low, like under 80, really, really, really dumb people from really, really horrible countries that work for the CRA, and they don't get along. You know, if I've got my numbers right, Nigeria, for example, has got 154 different tribes living within the country, and they hate each other. All right. Ethiopians hate Eritreans, but Ethiopians, they're split into two groups, the Tigrays and the Amharas. And the Tigrays have been killing the Amharas for the last 50 years. So they hate each other. And they put Amharas and Tigrays in the same office together because they don't know any better. And people in Canada, they're stupid, right? They have no clue what the dichotomy of Nigeria is. So they'll say, oh, you're from Nigeria, and you're from Nigeria, and you're from Nigeria. Okay, we're going to put all of you in the same room at the same desk. But those of you who know what's going on in Nigeria, there's a province called Biafra that wants to separate from Nigeria. Biafrans hate everybody else in Nigeria. Boko Haram runs the entire north end of Nigeria, sorry, and they can't stand the Christians, right? So the Christians and the Muslims are at each other's throats. Then there's the smaller sect on the west side of the country that can't stand either party. So you've got these massive battles going on in Nigeria. Then you've got all these Nigerians that you've hired who absolutely hate each other, want to kill each other, and you're putting them all in the same office together and then saying, do your job and call Canadians who are born in Canada and steal their money. So they're all fighting with each other all the time. The Canada Revenue Agency is having a really difficult time with this, by the way. And what they are doing now is putting most of these people into home offices and then giving them toll-free numbers and cell phone numbers so they can work from home. Now, what happens here is when any of these particular individuals work from home and they pester one of my clients, they have no choice but to give their home office phone number to my client. I will make the phone call on behalf of my client, and if the person's polite, I don't publish their office phone number. If they're rude or they get on my nerves, then I do publish it, and I ask all of you to call them politely and just ask questions about their role and ask questions about their knowledge base to do with taxes and the law. And the Canada Revenue Agency doesn't like it when I publish people's phone numbers because the CRA is spending a lot of money getting more and more toll-free numbers to put into people's homes so the Nigerians don't kill each other in the office, so that the Eritreans don't kill the Ethiopians, so the Sudanese don't kill the Egyptians in the office. It is insane what's going on. And it's worse if it's Pakistanis versus Indians. Yeah, Indians. They're at each other's throats. If it's an Iraqi and a Saudi Arabian in the same office, they're at each other's throats. There's a lot of people in Canada that don't seem to understand how much strife there is all over the world. And this internal civil war that's going on right now in the Canada Revenue Agency is very good for all of us, because now we can do our taxes our way and get all of our money back from these maniacs before the entire CRA is broke. And by the way, the CRA is broke. I know this because whenever we do get our clients really big tax returns, like, $100,000, $200,000, $300,000 worth, when I get these large returns, it takes the CRA 3 or 4 months to pay them, because what they've got to do is collect more money, bring it in to pay all the refunds out. So it's a Ponzi scheme. It's a pyramid. That's what it is. They don't have the money in the bank anymore. Like they're surviving seemingly month to month now. They got to rob Peter to pay Paul, and they got to rob both Paul and Peter to pay Steve. And then they lie to Steve and try to get all that money back. It's crazy. All right. Oh, Marie asks a very good question here. Now you've heard it all. Why does the Canada Revenue Agency hire these people to work for them? Very simple reason. Their policy, not law, but their policy at the Canada Revenue Agency is to send you a letter, make 3 phone calls, send you a letter. If they're unable to reach you or get you to cooperate with them, that's when they send garnishment notices out to your boss or to your bank. Now, what happens when you're born in Canada and you speak perfect English and someone calls you on the phone and you don't understand a word they're saying, but they're acting rude and belligerent? What do? You hang up the phone because you're aggravated. These people are aggravating, so I get it. But if you hang up on them, it counts as one of those 3 phone calls that they have to make. So they are deliberately getting these non-English speaking maniacs to make phone calls to all of you to get through those 3 phone calls as per their policy without you cooperating because you don't understand them, specifically and only to garnish your wages. It's a very sick system. The corporation's got to be taken down. I can't stand them, and I'm doing my part to bankrupt them. All right, let me have a quick look here. All right, just looking at your questions here in the Rumble room. Okay, Mr. Vic's asking, why do you have to make sure you have at least 5 years left on your mortgage when you flip the name of your house? Well, because you're going to have to renew your mortgage if you don't pay it off. If you've got let's say a 15-year, 20-year mortgage, and then you switch the house into a numbered corporation, well, you've still got 20 years on that mortgage before they figure out that you've switched the title of the house. All right. So if you're going to pull stunts, make sure you have enough time left. Like if you have only 3 or 4 months left in your mortgage in Canada, you don't be playing games of flipping your property ownership. Renew the mortgage for 10 years and then flip it. That's how you do it. All right. Someone says language is not a knowledge. You speak a perfect English. It doesn't mean you're clever. Your success rate with what you try to attain as a goal, that shows that you're clever. Your capacity to win a debate without violence, that would mean that you're clever. Your capacity to outwit and outsmart opponents without having to use weapons to do so means that you are clever. Language is a technology. So I'm going to say I disagree with you a little bit there. Let me just give you a quick rundown on language here, all right? The English language, with all the technical terms and whatnot out there, has about 400,000 words in it. And the average man, by the time he's 40, and I mean the average man, only knows about 40,000 words. But the hyper-successful businessman knows between 80 and 100,000 words. The definitions of them, not necessarily etymology, but definitely the definitions. So when you factor in the average guy who knows 40,000 words and then compare him to the other guy whose vocabulary is double, and because every word in English pertains to a person, place, thing, historical event, or otherwise, then that's 40,000 more things that hyper-successful businessman knows. He's hyper-successful because his vocabulary is huge. I'm trying to remember the name of the author that said so, but he did say that I've noticed that there is only one thing that separates the unsuccessful man from the hyper-successful man, and often only one, a large vocabulary. So somebody who has a vocabulary of 120,000 words or more is clever. I'm going to have to disagree with your comment, but thank you for making it. Margaret says, what happens if the CRA finds out? Sorry, Margaret, what if they find out about what? If you could let me know on that, please clarify your question. I'll gladly answer that for you. I'm just going to be checking the Facebook room now. Let's see where we have any questions there. Okay. All right. Carol says, I bet the CRA would love to shut you up. Yeah, of course they would. If the Canada Revenue Agency had it their way, there'd be a bullet in my head right now. They know that I'm going to cost them billions of dollars, but they also know that I'm going to do that because they don't have any laws to back them up. What they would need to do is have a whole bunch of laws written to stop me from representing clients and stop me from investigating them. But it's public information. How are they going to stop that? No, it's not going to happen. They're not going to stop me. If the CRA was smart, if the Canada Revenue Agency said, this Johnston guy, this guy here, he's got a big mouth. He's never going to shut up. And they would be right to say that, by the way, on both counts. Why don't we just give this guy $25 million US and make him sign an NDA and shut him up? I could probably be persuaded to shut up for $25 million. Then I would switch careers. I don't know, maybe do something nutty like, I know what I would do. I'd buy one of those planes that does zero-G dives. That would be a good time. Parabolic. Was it a parabolic or hyperbolic arch? No, parabolic. Parabolic arch flying where you're weightless for up to a minute and a half. Yeah, probably do something like that. I don't know, tourism. I'd switch careers at that point. So let's see if the Canada Revenue Agency is smart. You guys are going to try to get rid of me with the courts. It's not going to work. You'll threaten me. It's not going to work. You got nothing to threaten me with. So why don't you make me an offer I can't refuse? It's incredible. The Canadian government, they've tried everything to get me to shut up. Everything except bribery. Isn't that funny? They never tried the one thing that every other government in the world will do. The Canadian government hasn't tried that. Losers. Not very smart. All righty. I'm just going to go back now to some of your questions here. Would I sell out, Kevin? I would say when I got a bit older, if I started having health problems, let's hope I don't, but let's say I was 70 years old and I had crippling arthritis and I couldn't move my hands or my wrists and I had cataracts and whatnot, I'd sell out at that point so I could get some surgery to get myself all patched up and alleviate myself of all of the stress. But, by the time I'm 70, that's like almost 20 years, 17 years where I can teach other Canadians to take up this mantle. So I could do a lot of damage by the time I would be at sellout age. At 70, though, I think we should all sell out at 70, don't you? Hey, life is really short. And at 70 years of age, I would have to pay attention greatly to the fact that there would only be about 15 years to go. And right now, I think the only person that's doing their 70s properly is Sylvester Stallone. I don't know if you guys seen that show he does, Tulsa King. The guy looks fantastic. He looks like he's enjoying life more in his 70s than he's ever done before. So I guess I'm just going to say that if I stay healthy and never get any major ailments or whatnot, and I'm enjoying myself still, no, I'm not going to sell out. So long as I'm enjoying what I'm doing, no. Egregious health issues? Yes. All right, moving on. All righty. So someone was asking me about tax reform in Canada. And they were asking me if I could break down upcoming tax law changes and how it's going to affect everything. All right. Well, capital gains is the big one, where Trudeau wants to increase the amount of capital gain that we are all paying on our homes and our corporate properties and gold and silver and whatever else. But as we've said before, if you come to me to get your taxes done, there isn't going to be any capital gain, because it's not my job to scrutinize your life and say, hey, dude, come on. Right? If you got a second house, you got to tell me so that I can tell the CRA you got a second house and screw you. That ain't my job. My job is to get your taxes done to the greatest benefit of you, not the CRA. I'm not here to raise funds for the CRA. I'm here to save you money. I'm here to protect you from the CRA, because they are animals and criminals, maniacs. I can't stand them. So I'm not going to be screwing you over. I'm not going to hire private investigators to investigate my clients to see what you have. I don't have a license for them to pull, by the way. And that's the other part that drives everybody in the government crazy, is I don't have a license for you to pull from me. So too bad. And clause 15 of the Taxpayers' Bill of Rights says that anyone can represent you. Here I am. All right, there we go. Rocket says, so I have a normal paid by the hour job. Could you stop them from taking taxes off my check? Yes, Rocket. There's ways. It's not just going to be where I sign a magical piece of paper and it disappears. It's an effort. There are steps that I have to take, but get a hold of me and we certainly can talk about that. The Chosen One says, I wish you were in the UK. I don't know, man. I'm seeing what's going on in the United Kingdom. I don't think anyone should be there if you want the truth. Every billionaire who lived in the United Kingdom has now left because the UK is that screwed. It's horrible there. I actually feel terrible for Brits in every way. If you're English, if you're Welsh, Scottish, you're Irish, it's a horrible scene right there. And the only thing that's going to ever get me to go to the United Kingdom, maybe, is business, but it would have to be one hell of a deal. I think the UK is something I should avoid for now, because there are a set group of people there that are not very much fans of mine. That's all I'm going to say. All right. So tax reforms. So carbon tax rebates, they're a joke, $700 a year. Whenever we do taxes for our clients, if they have a very low income, there's a lot of people out there who are making less than $20,000 a year now, which is really sad. So when they're making low amounts of money like that, this carbon tax that Trudeau is patting himself on the back for is only about $700, maybe $740, maybe for the entire year. And the GST credit that you would get back, so you can spend a little bit of money back into the economy, might be $350. It's not much. So it's not even worth looking at. As for the best record keeping practice, good question. The best thing that you can do for your records is ship them to me in Panama. That way they are outside of the jurisdiction of the CRA and the Canadian government. And there's no way for them to audit you if I'm the one holding your records. They would have to beg me to show them to them. But because I'm representing you in a client solicitor privilege, I am not obligated to do so. In fact, I can't. Legally, I can't. So even if I wanted to show them your files, I can't. And if I'm storing your files, the CRA is out of luck. You're in luck. They're out of luck. So that is another surefire way for all of you to keep your, in Canada anyway. United States, I don't know if I can do this for you. But in Canada, I can absolutely store all your files here in Panama and keep them away from the CRA. And the CRA gets only what we choose to show them. Margaret's asking if I'm a lawyer. No, but I'm better than most lawyers. I love knowing the law in Canada because the law is extremely one-sided. It's very much against the people, not for the people. And so I help as many Canadians as I possibly can by knowing the law. K-Rob is asking me this question here. Are you still enjoying your life very much in Panama? Of course I am. The country's incredible. I absolutely love Panama. Panama City is awesome, man. There's a mall here that's 1.1 kilometers long. So when we get sometimes awful rainstorms come in, no problem. I take a $3 Uber ride to the mall. I put on my my foot counter, and I'll do my 20,000 steps inside the mall, and then I will go to the gym inside the mall, and then I will go to a steakhouse and have a $7 steak that's about 12 ounces, along with yuca fries, which taste better than potato. Yeah. Oh, and sometimes what they'll do is they'll fry plantain. Oh man, when you have hot sauce on plantain, oh, it's so good. I know. So I know I'm having the time of my life here, and thank you very much, K-Rob, for asking me about that. Margaret, I mentioned client-solicitor relationship. Yeah, well, I would be your solicitor from the standpoint only that I'm representing you. All right, so I'm not a lawyer, but I can still have that privilege with you. Because if you choose me to represent you, and I do, I can never be called to testify against you, and I simply cannot give up any of your information to any branch of government. I cannot take the stand against you. So it's better to hire me than a lawyer. And I don't charge lawyers rates either. How much should I earn per month to live in Panama? Oh, here? If you want to live in a nice place, in a good neighborhood, and eat well, 30,000 US a year, and you can have yourself a great place to live and great food and have a great time. You could go out 3 or 4 nights a week and enjoy yourself. Movies here are $6. A lot of restaurants are between $3 and $10 for good food. You can go to really expensive restaurants if you want. They do exist, but I don't see the point. I would go to the restaurants that are humble and delicious and inexpensive. Is it easier to open a bank account in Panama and have an ATM card than in Canada? Well, a Canadian bank account is really easy to open up because there's so many of them. In Panama, if you're a Panamanian citizen, you'll have a bank account open in about an hour. If you're not a citizen or a resident, you'll have a bank account open in about 5 days. They just want to do their due diligence report and make sure that you're not a hardcore criminal, somebody who's a murderer or otherwise, because they won't do business with you. But if you're someone who's just got a couple of drinking tickets or whatever else, they don't care about that stuff. You'll get a bank account in no time. There we go. D. Catherine is asking me, do you have to do capital gains on a parent's home when they pass away? If you report your parent's death, they'll ask, but you don't have to do anything about it. What you should do, Catherine, or D. Catherine, I think your name is you got to get a hold of someone like myself. There's not too many guys out there like me who will tell you the truth about protecting the estate. It would be better if, while your parents are alive, we register a numbered corporation as a holding company and put your parents' property into the ownership of that numbered corporation, and then make you a 1% shareholder of the corporation, split the difference with them. So like they'll take 49, you get 2, 1 or 2, or your siblings split what's left there. And when your parents die off, their shares revert to you. So the house doesn't have to change hands because it's already in the numbered corporation. And that is how you deal with that, is contact me and we're going to hide the property. When your parents die, say nothing to anybody. In Canada, especially, be quiet about it. You're going to tell the CRA 3 years after. And you've got to be careful in Canada. If your parents die, do not go to a lawyer to get the house. Do it yourself, or do it through a paralegal and let them know that there's no probate. You don't want probate. Nobody's contesting anything. Because the lawyers, they'll take a $50,000 deposit. Immediately, they'll put the lien on the property to take that. Do not let your house go into probate, period. So your parents and you need to have that conversation. And if your parents are going to say, well, I don't know, I'm just not comfortable with that, scold them. Because I hear this stupid crap all the time, and it does irritate me. And it mostly comes from women. Ladies, this is not a sexist thing. This is, I get it. Women in Canada and the United States like comfortable lives. They like stability. There's no such thing, just for the record. And what they'll say is, well, I don't know. It's been in our name for 40 years. Why change it now? To protect it. That's why. Anything at all to protect what you have is what you do. It doesn't matter that the house has been in your name for 40 years. Change it to a numbered corporation tomorrow, and it's safe. It's still yours. Just change the ownership record to something that you control. And I get this all the time. There's a lot of wives out there, married couples contact me all the time to protect their assets, but it's the wife that stops it because it's fear. Well, I don't know. I just don't think. Like, it doesn't matter that you don't think it's a good idea. I want you to go and research it and find out with case law and fact why it's not a good idea, and then come to me with the hard evidence that it's not a good idea. And of course, no one ever does that. It's just fear. Like the gears begin to turn, like, oh, and the first thing that most of your minds will go to is, oh my God, I'm going to go to jail. I'm going to lose the house. Why do adults think like that? You're an adult. Once you're over the age of 25, you no longer have the luxury of thinking this way. You're in your own way. You're your own worst enemy. And I am a big believer in that adage of you are your own worst enemy when you are making decisions based on fear. It's really sick. So some people pay me a bundle of money to get their houses moved into corporations. And 10 times out of 10, it's the gentleman's wife who says, oh, I changed my mind. I don't want, just keep the money. I'm not going to do it. It's weird. And I'm telling you, because after I do all the document prep, I got to get paid. The CPA's got to get paid. The lawyers got to get paid. The couriers have got to get paid. Yeah. There's a lot of people getting paid on this. So I'm just wondering why you would hire me to protect your property and then stop me in the middle of it. It doesn't make sense. So you need to be ready to make the change. And now more so than ever before, because the economy of Canada, the United States is tanking. Let's see what happens on November 5th, but everything's starting to tank, everybody. So you've got to protect yourselves completely. Good question here from the chosen one. Can I run a business in Panama as a British citizen? Yep. Come on down, register a corporation, get yourself a corporate bank account, do business. Now, there are things you cannot do in Panama as a non-citizen. Retail stores are very much part of the culture here. So they want the locals to run the retail stores, which means as a foreigner, you cannot be a merchant, but you can run a restaurant. You can have a courier office. You can be a consultant for any field if you want. They're desperate for underwater welders here. You'll probably get $350 US an hour if you wanted to do that as a job. There's a lot of opportunity here, but register a corporation in Panama and hide your money in a Panamanian bank account. Life is good. Life is very good if you do just that. Okay. K Mars is asking me, I missed earlier. Can you please repeat how to get in touch with you? Could everybody please put my official website address down here in the TikTok chat and over here in Kick, please? And well, here it is right there on Rumble. You can't miss it there. So get a hold of me on my website, hit me on the contact form, and let's talk about your taxes. What is your business name? Some ask me what you do and what your type, what I do. Buy and sell corporations that are dying, help Canadians get out of their personal tax, help Americans get out of their corporate tax, help Canadians get out of CERB debt, CEBA loan debt, bank debt, GST debt. I clear all those debts up for absolutely everybody. Canmore Acquisitions is the name of the company, and Canmore Acquisitions is registered in Canada, United States, and Panama. It's in all three countries. Oh, and the Panamanian one owns them all, just for the record. Yeah. Yeah, Marie, security and safety, those things are an illusion. You always have to be forever vigilant. Enjoy the comfort while it's there, because it may not be there tomorrow. So you've always got to prep for it. And as soon as you know that your comfort levels are going to be gone, you have to make a complete and severe adjustment in your life to be able to retain that. So that means you're going to be uncomfortable for a short while before you go back to comfort. Don't be afraid to fix what's wrong in your life. Rocket says, laugh out loud, Kevin. You don't know how many times I want to call you and have my wife listen. She would freak. All right. Well, set a meeting up. I'll tell her everything she needs to know. I'm in. User 96. Doesn't the ownership change triggers a capital gain or welcome tax? How much do you sell it for? No. No, the capital gain tax, yeah, it only shows up if you shoot your mouth off. If you tell the CRA, hi, I want to give you money. I got a capital gain. Here it is. That's how I feel about people that report this stuff. No, they don't know that you sold the property until you report it to them. And let's say one day they start going through property records and they ask you what happened. You would hire me. I would contact the CRA and I would send them a letter saying that we are not willing to discuss anything in my client's private life currently. The questions that you ask are quite frankly rude and vile and none of your business. Discontinue all communication now. The file is closed and they have no choice but to close the file. It's that simple. Why would you tell somebody that you made money on a property? That's your business, nobody else's. Mitch, What does what cost? If you could clarify what you're looking for there, I'll get you an answer. If you don't report a death for 3 years, doesn't the CRA, when it's reported, demand a payment for those 3 years? No, they issue an assessment for those 3 years against the deceased person. And if you want to tie them up for a while, you object to it, and 3 years later, you'll get an appeal date. But good luck. The person has passed away. So they're not going to be showing up for court. You can show up on their behalf and say, here's the death certificate. The person's been dead for 6 years now. So, Your Honor, this is harassment. Throw this out. And they probably will. Okay. Just checking out more of your questions here. What if I inherit my mother's house and I go to sell it? Shh. You get your mom's house, you want to turn around and sell it? By all means, sell it. I wouldn't tell anybody about it at all. Just keep in mind, especially in today's market, you don't really make money selling property. You make money hanging on to it. So I'm wondering, would you not rather hang on to it and rent it out? Would that not be a better use of your time and better use of that house as a resource? I have to leave that decision up to you, but I would say that as long as you keep your mouth closed about what you're doing, there's going to be no capital gains tax. Get a hold of me. I'll make sure there's no capital gains tax. That's just how that works. All right, let me check the Facebook room here. Okay, I'm just going to read. D. Catherine's asking me, what I mean is in the will, it says the property is to be sold and the sales to be divided, but is the house going to be charged capital gains on the sale? Okay, Catherine, good question. Here's the biggest problem with siblings. When mom and dad die, the siblings start arguing. Well, I cut the grass 17 more times than you did, so I get more. And if you can't agree on what to do with the house, what happens? One of the idiot siblings will then put the house into probate. First things first, the lawyer's going to grab $50,000, $60,000 out of the whole thing. And then he'll stretch it out for a year or two to get more money out of it. So by the time you get the house, you've lost half the value. That's the problem. So the siblings, a smart move would just be to put all 3 of your names on the property or get a numbered corporation and all 3 of you become shareholders and rent the place out. Why is everyone in a hurry to sell houses? Man, hang on to them. A house can bring you revenue for the rest of the existence of your family line. Yeah, think about the Rothschilds. They probably own the better part of 1 million homes out there. All of them are making money. You know, being a landlord makes money. So if there is a situation where you've got siblings who are greedy and whatnot, then what we got to do is talk to your parents before they die, and we got to get your parents into a numbered corporation for their property. And then the bylaws of the numbered corporation that owns the house will be dominant over the will because the bylaws have been sworn in. That's it. And the will probably hasn't been. So let's understand that in this lifetime, you should not be fighting with your siblings or anybody else because the lawyers will get all your money if you can't get along. All right, here's a question about tax implications of digital assets and cryptocurrency. It's kind of a long question. With the increasing popularity of Bitcoin and other digital assets, how can Canadians navigate tax implications of trading, mining, and earning crypto? You shut up about it. Quiet. God. If you had Bitcoin and Ethereum and XRP and Kronos and Floki and all the others, why would you tell the Canada Revenue Agency that you've got these sources of income? See, here's the crazy part of it. Let's just say, for example, you buy a Bitcoin. 3 years ago, it was 25,000. Now it's 100,000 Canadian. So what are you going to do? You're going to report a capital gain of $75,000 each year that you have it? What if it drops back down to 25,000 in a bear market? The CRA is not going to pay you back on that capital gain. So you got to shut up. The only thing that'll happen is if you're telling the Canada Revenue Agency that you have crypto, is they're going to tax you every year and you will never be able to report the capital loss because they haven't written the rules in there yet for them to return your money to you. So if you've got a crypto wallet, if you've got a hard wallet, even better, quiet. If you're on any of the major platforms like Binance or crypto.com or Kraken or any of those guys, quiet. You gotta make sure that you're not talking about what you have because they're gonna want it. Now, they have no way to get it. They're not gonna get a court order to make you release it, but they're going to assess your taxes based on that. All right, that's what's going on there. So, shut up. Mverse is asking, are you familiar with revocable trusts? Do I do them? This time next year, I plan to be an expert in them. I haven't done them yet, but I do deal with lawyers who set up trusts. They're expensive. So I haven't been recommending it. We've been hiding everything in numbered corporations because they're inexpensive compared to what a lawyer is going to charge for trusts. We'll get there. Canmore acquisitions will eventually be there. Don't worry about that. A year from now, no problem. What wallet do you recommend to hold XRP? Crypto.com is the one that I enjoy the most. It's got the ability to sell, buy, and trade, swap any currency you want. You could have mini Flokiata and buy Bitcoin with it. You could have Litecoin and buy XRP with it. You can bounce your money all over the place. And they've even got this really cool feature where I'm sure a lot of you have done this, where you've made a bunch of trades and you end up with, 10 cents of Bitcoin and 40 cents of XRP and 90 cents of Shiba Inu. And you've got like $9, but it's all in little pieces of crypto. Then you just go to crypto.com, you say cash in dust or convert dust. They call it dust in the crypto world. So you get your $9 into Bitcoin, right? They'll actually do all of that for you. It's a really cool platform. It's a lot of fun, especially if you bought, let's say 100 Bitcoins 10 years ago, you have a lot of money you can just play with. And I've played the up and down market with a lot of coins on crypto.com. It is fun. But I mean, Andrea, any of the standard wallets are going to be fine. It's going to be a matter of which one do you think is the best for you. Kraken has the good mobile wallet. The hard wallets, those ones are good. Margaret says, if the deceased person has a government pension, by not declaring their death, this income is still received. Yes, it is in the way of checks or in the way of deposits, right? So what you would do at that point, if it's checks, then you can simply just write down moved and don't cash them. All right. Or if it goes into the parent's bank account, you could leave that bank account open if you wanted to, earn interest on it. And when they ask for the money back, pay them back. You could do that. But yes, if you don't report the death to the government, the pension will continue to roll in. It's up to you what you want to do with it. I don't recommend doing anything other than eventually trying to get it back to them, saying, oops, we just forgot. Dad died, got hit by a car, and his torso was over there, and his head was 15 yards down that way. We just forgot. We forgot he died. So here's your checks back. Don't keep the pension money, as much as we'd all like to do that, as much as we all think it would be hilarious if mom and dad died, put their body in a freezer and just collect their pension until we die. That it's still illegal. So that one I wouldn't do at all. Let me just have a look at your questions here, folks. I'm going to check the Rumble room right now. I'm just looking at, okay, so it seems on Rumble, looks like people are talking to each other. There's no real questions there. Let me have a look at the questions here. Will it affect your XRP value if crypto crashes if you're holding on crypto.com? No, if crypto crashes, doesn't matter where you're storing your crypto. If it crashes, it crashes. It goes to zero. I mean, it's dead at that point. I've had some currencies that have gone to like 0.00005. I've had that happen to a couple that I've invested in. You win some, you lose some. When these new coins show up, maybe they go up, maybe they don't. And sometimes, for example, I remember, it was called Mini Flochiata. I bought $800 worth, which got me something like 100 million coins, which was at 0.00001 penny. Like, it wasn't even a penny. It was 5 zeros, then a 1 after the decimal point. But I figured if it went to a penny, cha-ching. So I bought a bunch, and the decimal point moved 1 over. Wasn't enough for me to sell it, so I'm just going to hang on to it and see where it goes. Sometimes you win, and sometimes you lose. Investments are kind of wonky that way. The only real stable ones in the world are real estate, because everybody wants to have a piece of land somewhere. Alrighty. So I got a question here. How does the Canada Revenue Agency tax different sources of income? By issuing threat letters. Your sources of income could be the following: a job, a part-time job, a contractual employment position, commission sales, theft, dealing in drugs, like illegal activity. All these things could be income. Don't do illegal things. I'm just saying you can get your income anywhere. And if the CRA knows about it, they'll definitely want to tax it. There was a while back in the 80s, there was one, I can't remember his name, but there was a politician that went around interviewing prostitutes in Toronto and Montreal, trying to get them to pay income tax on their money. And he was trying to sell it to them, saying, think about all the benefits you would get. You would get a pension when you grow up. Thinking, pension? Oh my God, are you kidding me? No. Oh. So the CRA will look for any way at all to be able to tax what you have earned, but it's all done through threats. So the question is elongated here. Many of my friends are asking how the CRA treats different types of income, such as employment income, investment income, capital gains, and rental income. The truth is they categorize it, but it doesn't matter. To them, it's all the same. It's income. What they do is they add all these titles to it because they want you to think that you are somehow obligated to give it to them. So on the tax form, they've got all kinds of crazy things like other income. And that's where you would put down things like prostitution and gambling, if you were so inclined to do so. So that they want it from anywhere. They don't care where they get it from. They want you afraid of the process enough to snitch on yourself about every income source you have. That is what they want from all of you. All right. So let's think about protecting everything you've got. And let's think about having me do your taxes so that we don't have to stitch on yourself about every little thing, especially if it's not even income. I mean, in some cases, there's a lot of folks out there, they get $10,000 given to them as a gift. And a bad accountant will say, oh, you got a gift, did you? All right. You got married and someone gave you a gift of 10 grand. Oh yeah, we're going to put that down because I don't want to lose my license. That's what they'll say. It's crazy. No, you don't want to declare gifts. Those are yours. You keep them. Speed Up says, what do you do with the letters? If you're referring to letters from the CRA, you definitely want to reply to everything. Whenever they send you a threat, you have to send your own threat back. I know exactly what threats to send, so you can hire me as your agent to deal with your tax issues for you. Rocket says her family just went through a death of the mother, but it's already in probate. Well, you can get something out of probate by simply telling the lawyer, dude, it's over. No more probate. We didn't hire you. We didn't ask for this to happen. Quite frankly, I don't know how you did it. Call the police. File a complaint saying this individual here is ripping us off. He's committing fraud over 5,000. Lawyers are grabbing all kinds of houses out there and sticking them in probate. But the message is for all you adults out there, find a way to get along. Arguing about who gets what is really stupid. Here's the deal. Do you really think that your life is going to be so much better if you get $8,000 more on your parents' house when mom and dad die? Honestly, because you did what? Because you're the one that fixed mom's garbage disposal, so you should get $8,000 more? Come on, man. Yeah, it's amazing how people just can't be happy. They cannot be happy. with what they get. Everybody wants more, 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 more. And in a lot of cases, it's not even that they want it because they're greedy. They just don't want the sibling to get it. It's about, let's see if we can sabotage this whole thing so that he doesn't get it. It's ridiculous. Get along. All right. But you can get rid of probate lawyers, and you should. Oh, okay. So do I deal with the Quebec government in addition to the CRA? Very difficult. But what we will do is we move the ownership of your Quebec properties into provincial corporations elsewhere, like Ontario or Alberta. Once we do that, then the property, aside from property tax, is no longer subject to the same rules and laws. Quebec is a messed up place. It is as Hitleristic as you can get when it comes to the provincial sales taxes. I would never run a business in Quebec. I would never register any government documentation in Quebec because the province of Quebec, they just rip everybody off. Albeit Montreal and Quebec City used to be beautiful. They used to be party central within Canada. They used to be great places to go. That is no longer the case. And the Quebec government does not really do anything to bring more revenue into the province. They don't exploit their forests. They don't exploit the amount of sunlight that the province of Quebec gets. Like solar and wind would actually do well in Quebec. Those technologies normally don't do much, but they would do well there. And the Quebec government doesn't do any of these things. There's even what's that? It's where you put generators. They're long cables, and they ride up and down on the ocean waves. I forget what that technology is called, but the wave of the ocean generates power. And the St. Lawrence River, especially through Montreal, is very fast moving, and it's very rough. And it could also generate power by having those elongated cables with the generators on them. And the Quebec government's not doing that either. The Quebec government's not doing anything to make money except for stealing it from everybody who's there. I would get out of Quebec if you're in Quebec. Yeah, it's crazy. Just going to head back over to the Rumble Room. Okay, question. If you stop taxes coming off your paycheck, would you have to come up with an amount to pay at the end of the year? No. No, again, there's no law that says you have to give them money. Not a one. And if we do your taxes properly and we get you all the appropriate write-offs that you're allowed to have, vehicle, if you're using your home for business, we can write some of that off. If you're using your vehicle for business, we can write some of that off. It's all kinds of things that we can simply write off. Medical expenses, legal expenses, your accounting expenses. We can write all these things off. Let's get your income down as close to zero as possible. And then we just send in your tax returns, because what we do is legal. If all your write-offs are legal, then we submit them. And the CRA is going to be hard pressed to say no to them because they're going to be factual. That's how we do it. So even if you have a 9-to-5 job, should you still have an incorporated company set up? Yeah. Yeah, you should, because you can use that as a holding company and put all of your money into that corporation. And if you have a 9-to-5 job, you got to be talking to me about all the write-offs that you're allowed to have, which are many. You'd be amazed how many write-offs there are, even if you're on a T4 in Canada. I don't know if the same is true with the IRS in the United States, but there's a lot. You can actually ask your employer to stop taking taxes. Yeah, you can ask anybody anything. I mean, you could ask me to shave my head. I'll decline, but you can still ask. You could ask your boss to stop using the T4 for you. In some cases, you could say, hey, boss, do me a favor. Fire me. Discharge me from this job. Fire me and hire me on contract, because you've got a numbered corporation now, and you just write invoices to your boss, and your boss is going to save tens of thousands of dollars every single year. You know, if you have a company and you're not willing to have robots doing all the job, you want to pay people to do the job, great. Be fair with them. and let them write everything off. Let them have numbered corporations. Put everyone on contract. Forget this T4 nonsense. There's no law. There's no law. There is no law that says an employer must use a T4. Employers choose to do that. Okay, everybody? They choose to do that. And whenever I ran companies in Canada, I always chose to never do that. There's no benefit to it in any way. There was going to be a lot of money I would have to spend in order to write those T4s for people, something I'm certainly not willing to do. So no, I would never in this lifetime do a T4 if I was an employer. You can always give it a shot. There's no harm in trying to get someone to, I guess, see the light. Just present it to them saying, hey, boss, check it out. I'm going to save you $36,412 per year every single year. What do you say? Oh, and it's not going to cost you anything. What do you say? And then you tell them, look, I've got this new numbered corporation. Here's my custom invoice. I want to invoice you every Friday for my 40-hour work week or my 50-hour work week or whatever your number of hours are in the work week. That's exactly what you're going to do. All right, is just bring it forward. It's all in how you sell it. You want to make sure that when you're trying to get someone to do something, you always have to play to their greed. Never say, can I have a favor? Don't do that. It's, hey, boss, going to save you some dough. Check it out. Pre-do your numbers if you need to. Figure out what the actual numbers are. Pre-do them and tell your boss, hey, look at this. I'll save you $37,000, $51,000. I'm going to go on contract. Fire me. There's no benefit to it. The only time I would say don't get fired in that particular fashion is if you have full dental coverage, full medical coverage, full everything. In which case, get veneers done, get everything done you need to get done on your mouth and on your kids' mouths, your spouse's mouth, get all that stuff done, then ask. Take advantage of the company plan if it's there, because those things are used as a I guess a way to get in better talent. And it works. It absolutely works. But I would still rather pay for my own dental. If I was, let's say, being paid $200,000 a year to do a job, if I'm on a T4, I'm going to lose about $90,000 to the government, plus all the extras that go with it. Or, I just keep the $200,000 and I can afford anything. Because even if I've priced things out. If I got, like my teeth aren't bad, but if I got brand new veneers covering my teeth right now, I could get the whole thing done for $6,000. So I'd rather just not pay tax and not have dental. Just pay for my own dental. I'm fine with that. What about nonprofit organizations? Power Love, what about them? If you could expand on your question, please. I'd like to address that for you. All right, here's one. What's the deadline for filing my taxes? What happens if I miss it? April 30th. What happens if you miss it? If you didn't make any money, nothing. If you're at the poverty line, nothing. So it doesn't matter. What happens if you miss it or you're going to miss it? You fax them a letter telling them that you have brain cancer or your cat's got cancer or your pet snake's got cancer. Somebody's got cancer and you're dealing with it. I need an additional 90 days, and they usually will grant it to you so long as you let them know in advance. So the penalties for filing late only exist if you're not using me as your accounting specialist, okay? That's how it is. Most accountants will just go right ahead and write the penalties in for you because most accountants suck. They really suck. How do I maximize my tax refund? Okay, there's a bit more to it. It's a bit scrambled. Hold on. Okay. Should I be contributing to RRSPs to reduce my tax? No, never. The Registered Retirement Savings Plan in Canada, this scam, I was a kid when this came out. It's a scam. All right. So what they do is they tell you that you can put money into your RSP and save a little bit of tax each year. But then when you take it out at retirement age, they just tax you on all of it. to the tune of 48%. Why would you bother investing in something that's not an investment? And the part that really gets on my nerves the most is that the banks who hold your RSPs or the fund companies that do, they actually will hold your taxes back on that particular day, the day that you cash them all in. Now, there are ways to cash in your RSPs and get about 30 to 40% tax reduction. I know how to do that. It's not easy to do, but it's worth it for you to do. So if you ever want to get some savings on that, let me know. Do not get into RRSPs in Canada or GICs. Forget that nonsense. Buy Bitcoin, buy XRP. You'll make a lot more money on that stuff than you ever will on anything the Canadian government has issued in the way of a savings plan. It's all a lie. It's a lie. Just like tonight's show is called, we got acts, laws, and lies. So we've covered acts, we've covered laws, and now we've covered lies. That is all that they do, is lie to you, to frighten you into giving them money for nothing. Speed up. How do you contact me? Could everybody please put my website address right now in the chat room right here on TikTok, please, so that our good friends can get a hold of me and get their taxes brought down to zero where they should be. What should I do if I make a mistake on my tax return? Call me. We're going to look at the mistake, scrutinize the mistake, and refile your taxes. You could refile your taxes back. They say it's only 10 years, but if you do it my way, you can go back as far as 15 years. You can look at all the mistakes in your tax return, every mistake that was made, and resubmit the correct version. Because the CRA, heaven forbid we give them incorrect information. Oh my goodness. So if you're coming to me to get your taxes done, in a lot of cases, I go back 10 years and I fix every mistake that was ever made by the previous accountants or sometimes yourself. And once those mistakes are fixed, you'll find that you're going to be getting back quite a bit of dough. Typically about half of what you paid, you get back. So some of my clients have gotten checks back as high as 400 grand from all the nonsense that their previous accountants have done that we corrected. It is okay to make mistakes with the CRA. It's okay to make mistakes on your tax returns. Hire me, and I'm going to fix them all right up. Wow. Well, that's a lot of great questions tonight, everybody. I want to say thank you very much for all your questions. This is the Real Estate and Money Show, where we talk about real estate, money, and taxes. I know tax season's coming soon, so we're going to be covering a lot more to do with taxes. Thank you for the heart. Than we are real estate right now. But come the new year, there are some very big real estate projects I'm involved in here in Panama and a couple in Mexico. So I'll be sharing with you a lot about how to invest properly internationally to make the most out of your hard-earned dollars. My God, because it is so difficult to make money these days and so easy to spend it because the price tag on everything is through the roof. And it's all artificial. It's all by design. And it does nothing but hurt we the people. So let's fight back a little bit by getting me to do your taxes for you. I love saving people money. I hate the CRA. I hate the Canadian government. In fact, I hate every facet of the Canadian government. None of it is to the benefit of the people anymore at all. So let's just stop giving them money. Period. Wow. Oh boy, everyone. Oh yes. And I'm going to be covering the election on the 5th. That's Tuesday the 5th. We're going to have some American guests come on the show to talk at length about what's going on in the United States. April or June is definitely coming on. There's going to be a few other surprise guests for Tuesday's show. We'll cover the entire election for at least 4 hours, possibly 6 that night. So we're going to be starting a few hours early. And that's going to be on Tuesday. That's Tuesday, the 5th of November. Let's see what happens with that election. My name is Kevin J. Johnston. This is the Real Estate and Money Show, which is every Thursday at 9 p.m. Eastern Time, right here on freedomreport.ca. To get a hold of me to get your taxes done, right there. It's kevinjjohnston.com. We'll see you next week, and good night. everybody, Kevin J. Johnston here. I am on the roof of this amazing place with this amazing city behind me here. Yeah, that's downtown Panama City. For those who think that I'm in a third world country, well, very not, as they say. I'm standing on a rooftop of a condominium down here that has been built with gentrification in mind. The neighborhood that I have just to the right of me here, or my left, your right, is called Casco Viejo. It's the most expensive land in Panama, and just a little bit over this way is what's called El Chorrillo, which is the cheapest land in Panama. But the whole area is being completely rebuilt. So this condo is right now, well, to buy it is the perfect time to do so, because the whole town is being gentrified and the value will skyrocket. Whatever you pay $170,000 for today is going to be worth at least $1 million in 5 years when the rest of the area follows suit. And speaking of condos, that is the point of tonight's show. A lot of questions are always coming in on this being the real estate and money show with me, Kevin J. Johnston. Should I buy a condominium? Everybody is asking, should I buy a condominium? Well, yes and absolutely not. Both answers are correct, and I'm going to cover all of that now. If you're going to be buying a condominium in a place like Panama City here, or in some cases condominiums in larger cities, or even brand new developments in Mexico and El Salvador, the odds of the property value going up are incredibly high. Yes, that's right. For example, in Tulum, which is south of Cancun in Mexico, in the Yucatan Peninsula on the east side of the country, there's a brand new airport there and a lot of development. Now, right now, condominiums are selling there for about $80,000 US, and I suspect within 5 years, because now that Trump's in office, a lot more money is coming into Latin America and the United States, not necessarily Canada. A lot of money is going to be coming in. Americans who will have more net worth are going to be buying these properties up, prospecting for future value, future resaleable value, which is exactly why I'm buying property down here in Panama, because I am thinking 5 years down the road. I'm thinking about my retirement now. I'm 53 years of age. I'll be 60 in 7 years. I am closer to 60 than I am to 40. So I do have to look at all of the ways that I can retain my wealth. So let's talk about wealth retention first, and then I'm going to dive into condominiums so you get a really good sense of what I'm talking about. Wealth retention is incredibly important. In Canada, the Bank Act is going to expire. It was going to expire. The Federal Bank Act was going to expire on June 30th of next year. But thanks to me and my show, the Canadian government, after I told Canadians, get your money out of Canada, do a bank run, clear everything out of your accounts and come to Panama, as soon as I said that, the Canadian government put a 2-year extension on the end of the Bank Act. But when the Bank Act of Canada expires, that means that the Canadian dollar can be, if they choose to, dissolved and replaced with the central bank digital currency, which they were planning on doing last year in Canada, and it did not get done because the Liberal Party of Canada is far too disorganized. If they were more organized, they would have got it done, but they're not, so they didn't. With the Bank Act expiring, Canadian dollars that right now are worth about only 70 cents of the US dollar will continue to drop in value. Now, how do you retain the value? Gold and silver. You definitely want to buy gold and silver. Now, even though the Canadian government has sold off all of our gold reserves in Canada to China, of all places, there's nothing to back the currency. There's still gold being minted as bars and coins within the country. Funny enough, as terrible as Canada is at everything, it's actually good at maple syrup and gold and silver bars. They're even pressing copper bars and copper coins right now, which are still a decent investment. They won't go up as fast, but still a good thing to have. So if you want to retain your wealth, doing it in Canadian dollars is pointless, but doing it in gold and silver is absolutely the way to get that done. There's a lot of information that I can provide to you whenever you buy yourself a consultation with me. I'll guide you down the correct pathway to getting your hands on gold and silver the good stuff, the 99.9% pure stuff. That's the stuff that you want in Canada. Wealth retention also comes in the way of property, real property. When I say real property, I am talking about things that you can live in, all right? You can live in. Let me address one more thing though before I do property. Crypto. A lot of you say, I'm not getting into crypto, it's a scam, they can just shut the electricity off, blah, 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 blah. It's never gonna happen. The world leaders out there are not going to allow the power grids to fail. Why would they want that to happen? All money in the world is digital now anyway, except for gold, silver, and copper bars. All of it's digital. So if, let's say, the Russians did something stupid, like nuke the Ukraine, all they're gonna do is melt all the phone lines that run their transactions on a secondly and microsecond basis. Countries around the world are not going to be firing nukes at each other, and they're not going to be sending out EMPs to knock out the electrical grids, because if you do knock out an entire country's electricity, you can't trade with that country. And the governments know this, so don't ever concern yourself with electricity not being available. You got to keep in mind that CANDU nuclear reactors are still the best in the world, and there's lots of them around the world. In the province of Ontario in Canada, so much electricity is being created in that province that the province of Ontario has to pay the state of New York to take it off the grid. So it's abundance. It's out there. Don't worry about it. Crypto's the way to go. Bitcoin is amazing because it's going to be worth 150,000 US by this time next year. It will enter a bear market early in the year. It might drop back down to about 40,000. When it does, I'm putting every penny I have into it to make sure that I can quintuple my money in the future. Ethereum it's okay. It's mostly used for digital content, video games, music, ebooks and whatnot. But XRP, this is the new up and comer. The Russians have indicated clearly that they want to go with XRP. Why? Because it's only 71 cents Canadian per coin right now, as opposed to $100,000 Canadian per coin with Bitcoin, which means it's going to be more widely available and more widely used by the people of Russia and all the surrounding areas. The former Soviet republics, for example. Imagine Kazakhstanis being able to buy Bitcoin. They simply cannot. So they'll be into XRP. If XRP becomes the official digital currency of Russia, you can expect it to go past $50 per coin. Imagine buying coins at 71 cents and then having them go past 50 bucks a piece. So I'm buying XRP for quick investment income, and I'm buying Bitcoin because that's my digital gold. I buy silver, I buy gold, and I'm buying pressed copper coins. But now, property. You have to have a diverse portfolio if you're going to continue to try to live in Canada or do business in Canada or have some wealth in Canada. Some cash, some US cash, some gold, some silver, some crypto, and absolutely a property. So many of you out there are just absolutely dying to sell your houses. Don't do that. You don't make money selling property. You make money hanging on to property. First off, you get the appreciation value, but then you can rent it out. Let's say you've got a big house. You could rent out not only the top floor, but the basement as well. You could rent the driveway out to somebody who wants to park a car. You could rent your backyard out for anybody who wants to do storage. Let them build a shed in the backyard and let them store your stuff. If you have a garage, you can make that an apartment. Make an extra 800 bucks a month on that. Make money on your property. Don't liquidate it, because what happens to the cash after property becomes cash? It doesn't go up in value. Canadian banks right now are paying 0.01% interest on money. In downtown, right here in Panama City, there's 52 major banks. I made a presentation to the mayor of Panama showing him how the banking system in Canada works, and they all just lit up. What? For $1 million in the bank, you get 0.01%? Put $1 million in the bank here, you get between 7 and 12. Holy smoke, you can make $70,000 a year just in interest, and then let it sit and compound it. My God, Canadians are getting ripped off big time. So you gotta have property. You wanna hang on to your property, but you wanna buy houses, farms, or vacant land. I cannot stress enough about the condominium market. I will talk about Panama shortly. I want to talk about the Canadian condominium market, and I want to talk to you about it so that you fully comprehend where I am coming from. It is absolutely urgent that you understand precisely what I am saying to you now. Condominiums in Canada are the stupidest thing you can buy. It's dumber than buying a car. It's dumber than buying a cup of coffee for $5 when you can make a cup of coffee for 8 cents at home. It's that stupid. In Canada, condominiums are not freehold. Freehold means you own the unit, you own the little piece of patch of grass or whatever around it, you own it. In condominiums, you never actually own it. It's more like a long-term lease. So you might drop $500,000 to have your name on title on a unit, but you don't own it. The condo corporation that owns the building actually owns your unit. And they can, if they choose to, kick you right out the front door of a unit that you own. We saw this done during the fake COVID nonsense, where landlords would say, put a mask on when you're in our elevators, or actually it's the condo groups, and people would say, no, there is no pandemic, I'm not wearing a mask, only to be banned from the entire building. Yeah. So imagine dropping $500,000 on a condo and being banned because some crazy security guard doesn't like your choice to wear something on your face or not. Also, the fees. Let's talk about the fees with Canadian condominiums. The first thing you're going to be paying is your mortgage. That's big. A $500,000 mortgage right now is probably going to be about $2,700 to $3,300 a month in mortgage. Property tax, yeah, you have to pay property tax in Canada. You're in the sky. You're in the air, but you still got to pay property tax just like a house. Because the city is going to say, well, we have to run water and there's sewer and we got to run electricity and blah, 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 and we got to clear the roads. Okay, a little bit of that is true. But the property tax that's being charged right now on condominiums is equal to smaller houses, especially if you're in Toronto and Montreal. Condo property tax is higher than houses on the east coast of Canada. Double what you would find in places like Maine and Massachusetts. Think about that. Then you've got the maintenance fees. That is correct. And the maintenance fees are monthly, and it's whatever the condo corporation decides that they want to charge you for that space. You're in the air. The maintenance is supposedly supposed to cover janitors to clean the place, keeping the elevators running, keeping the lights on, keeping the pipes clean, keeping the AC running, keeping the heat running in the winter, snow removal in the winter in the parking lot, salting the parking lots in the wintertime, cutting the grass, growing the grass, installing Lord knows what in the way of toys for kids outside. If there's a pool, which many don't have, the maintenance on the pool, they'll tag you for everything they can. And I have just recently had a family member come to me saying they found a condo that they absolutely adore, and we went through it. It's 1,000 square feet. It's got one bathroom in the whole place. Imagine a 3-bedroom place with only one bathroom. You're not allowed to expand the closets into another bathroom. They won't let you do it for whatever the reason. The maintenance fees are $1,000 a month on this place, and the property tax is $3,000 a month for a garbage condominium. And the way that they were laid out in the 70s was awful. It even has parquet flooring. You remember that stuff? That's the stuff you're supposed to shovel up and throw in the fire, burn that stuff. I can't stand parquet flooring. It's not even fit for gymnasiums anymore. So there is no value in a condominium. $12,000. Oh, one more thing. A lot of times these condominium corps, they will put the Canadian goods and services tax on top of the fee. In Ontario, where Toronto is, that would be an additional 13%. So the maintenance fee is $1,000 plus $130 in tax, plus the property tax, plus the mortgage, plus the parking space for $100 a month you got to pay, plus. It will be the better part of $3,000 a year for electricity in a place like that in Toronto. It's going to be about another $3,000 for gas, for the gas-powered heater in there. Then you've got your $70 a month for water. It is absolutely crazy to even consider buying a condominium anywhere in Toronto. Now, if you think that condominiums are not like that anywhere in Canada, you are wrong. They are absolutely like that in every single Canadian city. All the fees that you have to pay are just not worth it. The only time you ever want to buy yourself a condominium in Canada is when they do the pre-sale before ground has been broken. Now, I did this once in the past where I had to put a $20,000 deposit down on each unit. I bought 5. Then the following year, I was asked to pay a maintenance fee of $5,000 for each one, which I did. Then I turned around just as ground was broken, and I sold 2 of them, and I doubled my money on them right off the hop. I held on to the other 3 until the building was complete, and I tripled my money when they were finished. I wasn't planning on living in them, and thinking back, I probably should have held on to them because they would have been paying me rent for, I guess, 12 years now. They would have been paying rent. So it's a lot of rent money that I threw away. But at the time, the economy wasn't very good. Jobs were scarce. I needed the money, so I sold what I had. I, of course, don't regret it. I just resent that I couldn't hang on to them. So, condos. If you're not going to be in the flipping game, then you got to walk away. A lot of times with condominiums as well, you can probably get them on a good deal, but they're just not worth it. It is very difficult. Before you buy a condominium in Canada, you got to talk to the condo corp group, and you got to find out what the rules are going to be for making modifications to the inside. In a lot of cases, you're not allowed to modify without first getting a city permit, which you don't have to do for a house. And then on top of that, they want you to get their permit. So you got to sit down and drop a couple $1,000s for the board of directors to sit down and look at your plans and say, no. Then you can appeal that to the same people that said no for $2,000 or $3,000 more, and they'll say, no. Then you got to appeal it in the court. Why go through all that just to be able to replace the floor? Why go through all that to change the layout into something a bit better suited for human habitation, which most condominiums are just not. So they are not investments at all. They are nothing but a drain on your resources. The odds of you recouping all of your money on a condominium purchase in Canada are slim to none. The odds are very good you're going to lose money on them. Now, trust me when I say this one, I've worked on more than 500 tax files for clients this year, and out of that, over 50 of them bought condos and sold condos, and all of those people lost money on every single condo. Every single one. Because even the new builds, although they have warranties, good luck getting them to come back and fix anything that's on warranty. It doesn't happen. You can sue them, you can win, they're still not going to pay you. So that is the problem in Canada. When you sue, you don't have any recourse to get paid. Why put yourself through it? The condominium market in Canada is completely flooded. If you're looking to buy condos because you like condo life, sure, be my guest. I actually like condo life here in Panama, but the condominiums here are definitely higher quality. And there's a lot more perks to them, such as rooftop pools, gyms, and access to the public. Good access to the public. Like this building right here, this first white one right here, it's a hotel called The Sands, and this hotel also has residences you can buy. It's got a pool that's almost 25 meters long on the 15th or 16th floor, and if you look at the rooftop, it's got 2 nightclubs, a restaurant, zip lines, amusement park rides, rock climbing wall, the whole bit. So there's a lot of perks here. Panama wants you buying property here, so you get a lot of really cool things that come with your condo purchase. So in Canada, don't do condos. But here in Panama, you can do condos, and you can do quite well on them. So in the building that I'm currently in, a beautiful corner lot is selling for $165,000 US. Now with that, there's a maintenance fee of $100 a month. That's it. It's $100 a month and 0 property tax because you're in the sky. And the Panamanian government says, yeah, you know what? They're in the sky. We're not going to charge you property tax. The building pays property tax, but the individual units do not pay property tax. And I've made an arrangement now for a lot of you who are looking to move your money very quickly. Let's say you've got Air Miles credit cards or those gold Visa cards that have all kinds of benefits to them, and they give you prizes based on what you spend. You can actually buy a condominium in not only this building, but over there in the Sands through me just by going boop with your credit card. Yeah, we can do a credit card transaction to buy you a condominium that you can in turn Airbnb out. Now, Panama has some weird rules inside the city where you can only Airbnb your property for, I think it's 45 days minimum. But this building here, the arrangement was made that you can do it for one night. And that's where the money is made, on very short-term rentals. So why would you not want to Airbnb out a place that you can buy on a credit card? Get all your points on your credit card and then pay your credit card off. Congratulations, you just moved $160,000 US, 200,000 Canadian, out of the country in one transaction on the phone. These are the opportunities that await you in other countries around the world. So don't think for a second that you can't move money here quickly. You can absolutely move money here quickly. To buy a condo here in Panama is nothing but pure profit, because Panama City is right now working incredibly hard on the complete rebuilding of older infrastructure. Roads are being rebuilt. Sewer lines are being rebuilt. New electrical lines are going in. When you compare Panama to Costa Rica, Costa Rica has power failures 5 to 10 times a day. Panama has had 3 since I got here. 1 for an hour because someone drove their car into a power box, and 1 for 30 seconds. And that's it. Panama's got their electrical grid down pretty solid. Yes, it's a developing country, but it's developing quite well, as you can see. The malls here in Panama are better than all the malls in Canada right now. They are beautiful, they are clean, they are full of retail stores, they are full of people. One of the malls in the city here is called Albrook Mall. It's right beside the Panama Canal. It's right beside the Panama Canal Airport. It's 1.1 kilometers long. It has retailers galore. It is just absolutely full of every single thing you could possibly want, and incredibly affordable. I'm buying cell phones, for example, right now here in Panama for almost $1,000 less than what I'm paying in Canada for the exact same phone. It is crazy to think that there's that much of a disparity in pricing between Canada and Panama. So here in Panama, to buy a condo is a very solid investment. You will make money on your condo. It will not be a financial drain on you. And the fact that you can do it on a credit card and earn all your points and air miles and whatever else you're collecting is absolutely remarkable. Nobody else has made that kind of arrangement, by the way. I am the only real estate guy in all of Panama that can do credit card transactions for entire condominiums. Now, another opportunity that has arisen, one that I identified right away, is on the far east side, a little further east there. There's a lot of office towers where they got hit equally as hard with the fake COVID nonsense. The previous president was crazy. The new guy is never going to do that kind of a thing. So the old president shut everything down, just like Canada, the United States, just like England. And unfortunately what that meant is now the office towers on the far east side of the city are half empty. There are opportunities now to go in with just suitcases of cash and buy entire floors of office towers down here and turn them into your own luxurious condominium if you want. Could you imagine, since a lot of these buildings are about 140 feet wide by 140 foot square, imagine having a whole floor to yourself with a private key to the elevator to get you in there, and private door to the staircase and whatnot. You could have all that. You'd have to make the modifications to it. You'd have to strip all the office gear out, but it would be worth it. You could turn that whole thing into rentals if you wanted to. You could turn the whole thing into an education center if you wanted to. You can buy entire floors of half-empty office buildings down here. Business is done differently here in Panama. So I'm going to explain the business culture here a little bit to you when it comes to property. So if you were to see a house, and the house has a for sale sign, like se vende, thank you. Se vende means for sale. So you see that, and it has a price on it. They might say, I want $140,000. You have your lawyer with you wearing a suit and tie. He's got a briefcase with paperwork, and you've got a briefcase, and I'll do everything through my translator. I'll say, hello, friend, hola, amigo. I want to buy your house, and I'll open my suitcase, and I'll have all $10 bills to make it look bigger. Because $100,000 in cash is only about like that. It's tiny. It's nothing. It fits in one hand. So you got to fill the suitcase up with small bills, and you'll say, I want to buy your $140,000 house. Here's $85,000. Now, and here's the lawyer to sign everything. And they'll say, okay, yeah, because to them, American cash is actually worth more than property. The culture has not evolved enough yet for them to look 20 years down the road and think about gentrification and think about the capacity to split their lots up into 2, 3, 4 lots and so on. These are things that we do in North America, but we've got, you know, a good 50-year head start in that type of a concept. So if you are looking to buy land here, show up with cash and your lawyer, and you can buy whatever you want for the price you want to pay. That's how it works. So if you want to do anything here, cash is king. It is very easy to get cash here in Panama, and it's actually very easy to open up bank accounts here in Panama. There's 52 big banks in this city right here. 52 big banks. If you want to open up a personal bank account, if you're a Canadian or an American, it's 950 Canadian dollars. It'd be about $725, $730 US right now. That gets you a lawyer and me walking into the bank with your paperwork, getting you a personal bank account. And we deal only with the top 20. We don't go to the really small ones. We go to the top 20 banks and get you the account that you're looking for. To get a corporation registered with a bank account down here is $4,000 US dollars flat rate. There's no tax on that. That gets the corporation registered, all the paperwork that you need, and gets you the corporate bank account open. Again, you can do all of this remote. That's what you're paying for, is to get it all done remote. If you fly down to Panama and walk in the bank yourself, they'll do it free, right? But you got to fly down and get it all done. You know, we can do it for you well in advance and have you start moving your money down here. And as for the corporate account, those are the best things on the planet to have here in Panama, because there is no courthouse in Panama that's going to do what the IRS says or do what Revenue Canada says. So many of you say, well, Panama's got treaties with Canada. Panama has a treaty with Canada if you're a murderer and you're on the run and they figure out that you're here. Yes, of course the Panamanians will tell the RCMP or the FBI, come down here and get him. He's yours. But if you're down here doing business, or you're down here trying to beat taxes in Canada or beat taxes in the United States or in the United Kingdom or Australia, they don't care. They're happy that the money is here. So the banks get chartered by the federal government here, but then that is where the federal government just steps back. The banks do not cooperate with the federal government here at all. So even if the Canada Revenue Agency or the IRS sued you, which the CRA does not do in Canada, by the way, if they sued you and won, the IRS does, you could get that court order, then they would have to come here to Panama and sue you in Panama and actually win before they could get a court order to get your banking information. But at that time, let's think about this, would they even know what bank you're with? And that's the funny part about the Canada Revenue Agency. They know what bank you're with in Canada because all the banks are chickens and they report everything to the banks. But the banks here are not reporting anything. So your money is 100% safe down here. But always do it in a corporation. If you're looking to hide millions, do it in a corporation. If you're looking to earn interest on your money, then you open what's called a foundation down here, which is the same thing as a not-for-profit corporation. A foundation acts as a holding company where you can have bank accounts that earn interest. So you get the same interest rate on your foundation bank accounts as you would on your personal bank accounts here in Panama. Now that is the best way to protect family assets. So the foundation becomes something that just gets passed down to the next of kin instantaneously. It's the same idea as having a family trust or a numbered corporation in Canada where someone dies, the shares just get split. Now I'm going to explain that one for you right now. In Canada, the Canada Revenue Agency, they do things like put not liens on your property if they say you owe taxes, but they're called writs. So the writ that they would put on your house is actually not a lien. It can be beaten by filing a motion in the court to have it lifted. And the odds of it being done are actually quite high because they didn't get a court order to put that writ there. They just went ahead and did it. And it's the same idea as a contractor's lien. If you put a lien on someone's property, you still have to perfect the lien by filing the lawsuit and showing all your evidence as to why it should be there. Because the lien can be argued to be removed in the future. So why give them the opportunity to put liens on property at all? Why not register a numbered corporation in Canada? I can do that for you. It's cheap, it's fast, it's done in 3 days. We declare it a holding company, and then we have that numbered corporation added to the title of your house or your condo or your farm or your collector cars or whatever you've got, and then we remove you a month later. And that way the numbered corporation now holds that property. Then we're going to make sure that we declare it just a holding company in your corporate bylaws, which I will write for you. We'll get them sworn in, so you're going to make that gesture with a notary public and say, I swear everything's true. And once that is done, whatever the corporate bylaws are will actually circumvent whatever your will says. That's something to keep in mind, which makes it powerful and means the property can never go into probate. I'll explain that just a little bit further here. So let's say, for example, I buy a house in Toronto, it's worth $1 million. Let's just say for the sake of argument. And because I've got kids, what I would do is I would have myself holding 51% of the shares, and the kids would split the 49. But in the corporate bylaws, it would state that whoever dies, the shares that remain get divvied up equally amongst the survivors who are part of the corporation. Should all parties die, the corporation will then be transferred to ex, brother, cousin, friend, ex-wife, ex-lover, doesn't matter who it is. I can designate in the corporate bylaws who it goes to, which will absolutely annihilate the capacity for any lawyer to grab the property and stick it into probate. Because this is something you have to avoid. Lawyers right now, there's too many of them in Canada. They don't have anything to do. You don't even have to go to them anymore. You can go to ChatGPT and say, hey, ChatGPT, write me a lawsuit under the laws of the province of Saskatchewan, and it will. It'll ask you what to put in, so you just dictate, you speak, you tell it what you want to say, it'll write the lawsuit for you. You don't need lawyers anymore, and lawyers know this, and AI is only gonna get better. Never worse, always better. So these lawyers are looking around and trying to find people who are old. They're looking for senior citizens. They're going through records. I don't even know how well, I do know how they're getting them. They're getting them through Terranet. And they're finding out who is over the age of 75, 80 years old, and they're putting themselves down as the probate lawyer on that property, completely illegal, because the old guy or the old gal or the old couple that own that house, they're not hiring that lawyer, but the lawyers are lying and saying that they were retained for it. So what they will do when they find out the house the person has died, they will just get a friend of theirs to write them a check or a money order and put that in the bank so they can say, no, look, we got a $10,000 retainer here. Then they just take the $10,000 out and give it back to their friend. That's what lawyers are doing in Canada right now. So if you have your house or your collector cars, your gold, your silver, your priceless art, if you have all of that in numbered corporations, and your insurance that you have on these things is to the numbered corporation, then there's no way for a lawyer to sneak in and say, yeah, I'm going to put this house into probate. It's not possible. It can't go into probate. In the corporate bylaws, and this is where I guess a responsible parent would come in, the corporate bylaws can be as detailed as you want. So let's say you've got 3 kids, 2 of them are stellar, good people, they hold jobs, they invest well, they're married, they treat their kids right, they treat their spouse right, and you got another burnout who's on weed and on alcohol all the time, hanging out with drug kingpins all the time. So you can state in the corporate bylaws that the loser kid has a 2% share in the corporation with no voting rights and can only ever retain the value of 2% and only upon death of the entire group, provided that he's not arrested for the murder of those very same people. So that's where you can put rules in saying that, you know, my idiot 3rd kid who's a burnout, we want him to get an education. So he has to go get a university degree. He has to show the transcripts and he has to show his grades. He's got to show everything. He's got to hold a job for 2 years and make this much money and actually file taxes, although you shouldn't, but you can do these things to make them improve themselves to get more shares in that house. You can actually utilize the corporate bylaws to dictate all the terms of how the corporation runs. Because if that loser kid is going to be a shareholder, and he's only got 1 or 2%, even if you gave him voting rights, he can only vote 1 or 2%. So whatever you tell him to do, he can like it or he can lump it. There you go. So forget wills for houses. Forget all that nonsense. A numbered corporation for your house. Ideally, you want another numbered corporation for all of your savings and all of your money, because you can put your money there. These are not corporations that make money. So you don't need goods and services tax numbers. You don't need harmonized sales tax numbers. You don't need PST number. You don't need any of that nonsense. For if you got a collector car, let's say you've got a 72 Barracuda and a 69 Chevelle, and you got a 1905 Rio where you crank the engine. You got all these collector cars, and they're worth $5 million. You put those into another numbered corporation, separate the cars. And again, through the shareholders agreement, you could say, I have 51%. They can never be sold until my death, provided my death is not murder. And then dictate the terms of what these kids do with these cars. You know, you could even state that the cars can never be sold unless they get a certain value for the car. That the cars, if they are not going to be driven, must be put into a museum. Or you can dictate everything. It's your corporation, you dictate. Now, the kids can vote, they can outvote you after you're dead. They can do that, but at least what you're doing is you're establishing the rules of the corporation. You're keeping the government away from what you own, and you're also keeping these crooked, filthy, conniving, sneaky, nasty, vile, useless lawyers away from everything that you've worked so hard to get your hands on. When you're out there earning some more, it's yours. Don't give it away to these lawyers. Don't waste your money in Canada buying condominiums. Please don't do that. Don't waste your time even with townhouses, because you got to remember, if it's not what's called a freehold townhouse, you don't own it. You just don't own it. The condo group owns it. They will give you a difficult time about everything. The color of your curtains. If you put a Canadian flag or an American flag on the front, you can't do that. If your car has a loud paint job, you can't park a pink car in your driveway. It's worse than a homeowners association. This is the crazy stuff that people do because losers like to control the lives of others. If you don't want your life controlled, buy a house. Buy a house that has land, because you can always grow on the land. Eventually, one day, you could knock the house down and build two and sell both. You can sell a house to developers. You can't sell a townhouse to developers. So you always want to have the option to sell a place of yours that somebody else wants to just rip down and start over. Let them do it. Once they buy it, that's up to them. But please get your hands on something where the value is always going to be there. One more thing about condominiums I forgot to bring up. This is a very important one. Is sometimes the entire condo corp or the entire building gets sold to an outside group. Now, where do you think most of those groups are coming from? China, United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, yeah, those countries there. India, yeah. These are countries that have awful cultures that are not wrapped around personal freedom and individuality. They do things their own way. And when they start doing things their way, they are no longer catering to your culture, to Canadian or American culture. They're catering to their own. Which means what? The value of the entire building drops, the maintenance fees go up, and the value of your individual unit goes up. And if you're trying to sell a place, there's a reality of called white flight, which simply means people of a similar culture, when they get infiltrated by another culture, completely in their own area, they leave and they go find their own culture somewhere else. They call it white flight, but I actually call it cultural flight. That happens. And when white flight or cultural flight becomes a thing in a condominium, your condo drops. The value it goes down, but you're still paying all those ridiculous fees on it, perhaps even more. And I am not interested in having anybody out there telling me what to do with what I buy. It's my money. Get lost. Leave me alone. But in a condo, no one's going to leave you alone. And all these stupid videos that we have all over YouTube and TikTok now, where you've got, they call them the Karens. You know, the individual people, men and women of all ages, who start shouting at people that they don't recognize walking in the front door of the lobby of the building that they live in. You know, and the police have to get called. It becomes a big waste of time. Do you really want to spend your time around people that you don't know in a failing economy in Canada, hopefully a better one now in the States with Trump in office. But do you want to be around people that are angry because they're broke in a broke country? I'm sure that we can all agree that you just don't. The answer to that one is going to be a resounding no. I mean, here in Panama, I bought in a building where the vast majority of the owners are Americans, Canadians, Brits, and so on. So the culture is very similar. Panamanians staff it. So the security guards and the cleaning staff and the maintenance staff, whatnot. And you know what's awesome about Panamanians? They are eternally grateful for the jobs. Because when they're working for American, Canadian, white companies like this, well, then what they will do is, first off, they'll do a much better job because they want to keep that job. And secondly, they get paid more than the average does at a Panamanian company. Panamanians love it when Americans, Canadians, Aussies, New Zealanders, Brits, the French, whenever Paleface shows up with money, they absolutely love it because they know it's going to equate to jobs for them and their families. So I've been actually communicating with a great number of people here in Panama, and I'm telling all the young men out there, especially the ones who are under 20, learn English, because interpreters are going to get paid down here about 200 bucks a day. You know, I've got an interpreter that he comes with me whenever I go on business. So I'll call him the day before saying, be at my door. You got to get to my door. I want you there for 8 o'clock in the morning. I pay him 200 bucks. He drives me around for the day. He translates everything for the entire day. I mean, I buy dinner. He's a hell of a guy. And I get all the work done that I've got to do. But translators down here who don't drive around, that just do the translations, they're like 20, 30 bucks a day. All right? I like to pay fair because when I see someone who brings a lot of value to my life, I'll pay them for it. But you can get away with the lower budgets down here. Because in a lot of cases, a Panamanian family, the whole family only makes about 2,000 US a month, but they're happy because they can pay all their bills with that, and they can actually put some away for a rainy day. Is that the locals here, like I do now, they know where to shop to buy groceries for 20, 30 bucks a week. I'm buying groceries for 30 bucks a week. It's amazing. If you're coming down here, I'll show you where to go to get deals like that on food. And the food here is absolutely fantastic. So to recap this entire thing before I get going here is to retain wealth in Canada and the United States. Some cash, some gold, some silver, possibly copper. If you know how to get into Sri Lanka and buy tens of thousands of gems and bring them back, sure, try that too. Gold is better than gems. You definitely want crypto, XRP and Bitcoin. Bitcoin to hold it for higher value later. XRP because it will shoot up and you'll be able to use it anywhere in the world. And then you want to have real property. Condominiums in Panama, yes. Condominiums in Canada, no. If any of you want to have yourself what's called a concrete bank account, which is buying a condominium down here in Panama, especially here in the city, and renting it out, let me know, because we can just do one transaction. It'll take an hour, maybe less. All that's going to happen is I'll sit down with the lawyer and you and me and the owner of the building. Everything will be done on Zoom. The contracts will bounce right back and forth. You'll be able to record the call yourself, just so you've got it, and we'll run the credit card, get you your condominium. You've now just transferred X number of dollars outside the country. And if you're going to be buying property here on a credit card in Panama, let me know in advance, because we got to find out which card you want to use. I really want those of you who want to do this kind of thing with me down here to use your Air Miles credit cards or your Maple Leaf bonuses, whatever type of points you can get, use that card. I'm just going to leave you with a story here. If you're in the city of Mississauga, there's an area of nothing but car dealerships. It's called the Aaron Center, the Aaron Mills Auto Center. Thank you. And in there's about 20 car dealerships. All of them are in there. Now, back in 1994, there's a bunch of them got together. They wanted to have pixel boards put outside. Now they would have TVs on the road, but pixel boards were all the thing. Black, you know, that kind of yellowish light fixtures that you used to see outside that you could have scrolling text on. They did that to say, hey, there's car dealerships here. So what happened is, back in the early 90s, these signs were $40,000 each, and they got 3 of them made. So the guy that coordinated the whole thing with all the other owners of all the other car dealerships, ready for this? Paid on his Air Miles credit card. Yeah, and this is back in the 90s, the early 90s. So $40,000 was a lot of money back then, I'll tell you. So he ends up walking in the room, says, "Hey, Kevin, check this out." And he shows me his air miles. He said, "See here? I can fly for the rest of my life on one transaction." I'm thinking, Ben, tip my hat to you. Yeah, bow. Oh, wow, clever. So that is the type of thing that we can do. Get your points credit card set up, buy a condo down here with your credit card, get a hold of me for a paltry 950 Canadian. We'll get you a bank account open here where your money is safe in Panama. For 4,000 US, we get you a corporation registered and a corporate bank account here in Panama where your money is safe. There's all kinds of ways to make money, just not in Canada. If you're staying in Canada, my advice today is how to hold on to your wealth, but not to get rich in Canada. You want to get rich, you got to leave. There's money in Argentina, Brazil, Colombia, Panama, El Salvador, parts of Mexico, not all. You know, right now, Eastern Europe, Russia, there's money floating around everywhere. United Arab Emirates still makes a lot of money. There are places to go around the world where money gets tossed at you. All you have to do is put on a nice suit and tie, speak well, have gorgeous skin, and you're in the room and you're getting paid. That is just how it works around the world. Canada is dead. It's not coming back. There's no point investing in a country that deliberately sabotaged itself for the last 10 years. When a country is done, it's done. You have to just let it die off, and 100 years later, your great-grandkids could one day consider buying property in that country, because maybe, just maybe, a couple of strong leaders will come up from the ashes and rebuild to its former glory, or maybe close to it. Not gonna matter. I have no intentions of being here in 100 years. I'm alive today in the year 2024. We're a month and a half from 2025. I want to get rich, and I want you to get rich. Get rich with me by playing the money game the way I'm telling you how. My name is Kevin J. Johnston. This is the Real Estate and Money Show, where we talk about all things investment, money, and taxes. You'll catch me here every Thursday at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. Thank you for being here. I love you all. Good night. Hi, everybody. Kevin J. Johnston here. I want to say thank you very much for having just watched the video that I produced on the roof of one of my clients' condominiums. Yes, it is true. You can buy a condominium with just a credit card here in Panama, and that is the best way to move money out of the country. And for those who have corporate debt in Canada, corporate debt is becoming a very serious thing. What's going on with corporations now in Canada is the Canada Revenue Agency is going out of its way to break the law and actually hold all the directors of corporations personally liable, even for debts that are as old as 10 years. If you want to get away from all of your corporate debt, including every single debt the CRA is coming at you for on a personal level, simply get a hold of me, everybody. What I will do is I will buy your corporation from you. I will become the director of your corporation, and I will take on all of the financial liabilities that your corporation has. That includes income tax, payroll tax, GST, HST, and PST, all of the above, anything to do with bank loans or corporate credit cards, or bills that you owe to any particular supplier for any reason. And don't forget the CEBA loan, or even repayable grants. If there are any debts that you have whatsoever in Canada, the CRA is going after directors of the corporations. No matter how long ago you were a director, they are trying to get your personal money. This can all be fixed by offloading the corporation. You got to sell the corporation to me, because if you try to go bankrupt, it'll take about $70,000 and 3 years to not be discharged. The CRA is not allowing dischargings now on corporate bankruptcies, which is highly illegal and unfortunate, but they are getting away with it. And if you simply shut down the corporation and expect that to work, I'm going to tell you now, it truly will not. The CRA is going back and looking at all corporations that have been dissolved or just simply let dissolve on their own through inaction and through no business. And they're looking up who the directors are, and they're going after directors of those old and defunct corporations personally. You might have to just get a hold of me so we can revive your old corporation and then sell me that corporation's debt, so the CRA and your old suppliers can never come back at you for absolutely anything. Protection of what you have is key. And what the CRA does, albeit is illegal, they are still getting away with it because sometimes the courts do side with them, but not as often as you think. Once the corporation has been sold to me, you'll be signing a non-disclosure agreement stating that you cannot talk to the CRA about the corporation that I have purchased from you, which gets you off the hook completely. And I'll be contacting the Canada Revenue Agency and forcing them to prove that you had a corporate debt in the first place. That is correct. The CRA almost never has any records whatsoever of any of your taxes. What they have instead are assessments. And an assessment in Canadian tax law, if you could even call it law, is simply a guess. The Canada Revenue Agency has taken one wild guess as to what it is that you owe them, and that is what they are telling you that you owe. That is what they are basing all of their criminal harassment on, is a guess. And it's not even individual people doing it anymore. They are utilizing very poor AI software to judge what you have done in the past and to send you the according assessments to go along with what they think that you could possibly pay in the future. So if you were to have made, let's say, a $50,000 profit last year, they will judge you at about a $70,000 profit this year and tax you based on that. That is exactly what they do. It's all lies. It's all guesses. All of the numbers are completely arbitrary. And the only way for you to get around this is to have me do your taxes for you and then buy your corporation and take away all of that debt from you. The last thing that you want is to deal with the CRA. Let me deal with the CRA. Sell me your corporation right now. Get a hold of me right here at kevinjjohnston.com. I can't wait to sit with you for the hour consultation. If you do decide to sell your corporation to me, then I will refund the consultation fee because then we are doing a much larger scale of business. I want to have as many of you as possible no longer paying taxes in Canada, and I know exactly how to get that done. Starting in January, once a month, I'm going to have seminars on how to not pay tax, how to protect your capital, how to protect your properties, and how to protect your own money.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Kevin J. Johnston. This is the Real Estate and Money Show, which is every Thursday night at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. And due to popular request, tonight we're going to be talking about the truth in Canada about wage garnishments and frozen bank accounts that many of us believe mistakenly happens because the CRA has access to our banks, which you're going to find out tonight, really what the truth is on that. And I want to say thank you to all my American friends for being here, and thank you to all my Canadian friends for being here. We're going to cover for the next hour what the reality is of wage garnishment in Canada, what your rights are, what the law actually is on protecting yourself from government overreach, specifically in this case, the Canada Revenue Agency, which in Canada it would be our IRS and the equivalent of the Australian ATO, but not as much power. In fact, nowhere near as much power as either the ATO or the IRS. We are going to talk about that. But first thing is first, everybody. Look what I found today, downtown Panama City. Yeah. The namesake of the former hockey player, Tim Horton. You all know the Tim Hortons Donuts in Canada was once bought by Wendy's and is now bought by some Indian guy, Singh, whatever his name is. So Tim Hortons has a location downtown Panama City. Have a look. There's the photograph right there of me taking a picture. I had no idea it was there. I was in a meeting today with a great number of people. I had a really good time today. Panamanians are very serious about doing business, which I love. And as we decided to just take a quick walk back, we bumped into Tim Hortons. You can see the twisty tower there in the background. That's called the F&F Tower. If you look in the background, you can tell by the reflection in the glass that I am not in Toronto. I am in Panama City. Now, there's only one Tim Hortons here, and I'll share this information with you. This cup of coffee here in Panama at Tim Hortons is every bit as terrible as it is in Canada. I don't know what Tim Hortons did to their coffee formula about 8 years ago, but it sucks, and it sucks here too. Now, something else to keep in mind when you're down here in Panama is there are a lot of local business folks down here, men and women that run their own local coffee shops, their own cake bakeries, cookie bakeries, whatever it might be. You can get a cup of coffee at one of these places for 50 cents, which is delicious compared to Tim Hortons, which sucks. And you can get donuts this big for 80 cents. Or at Tim Hortons down here in Panama, you can get 2 little apple fritters like this and a really crappy cup of coffee for $8.40. Right. So I just want to point out that when you're dealing with this one Canadian coffee chain, one location down here in Panama, it's not worth it. It's cool to see that they've got Canadian decorations inside of it. They've got a pretty cool display of neon lights forming the maple leaf, but there you go. Don't buy Tim Hortons caca down here in Panama. You're going to be equally as disappointed as I was today. So I dumped half the coffee out because I just couldn't drink it anymore. And I stopped at a local coffee shop and got myself a 50-cent cup of coffee. And I am so much happier for it. All right. I wanted also, this one here, guys. I got this message in Facebook. It was a Facebook ad to do with taxes, which is, of course, what I do for a living. And here's what the ad looks like. It's from a company called Online Accounting LLP. It asks, are you 1, 2, 3 years behind on taxes? Now's the time to take action before the CRA does, the Canada Revenue Agency does. And what do we see in this advertisement? A police car. All right. They're trying to frighten you into hiring them to do your taxes, because this advertisement is telling all of you that you're going to get arrested if you don't do taxes. So I thought, you know what I'm going to do is I'm going to call this company. They ended up being in Edmonton, Alberta. And when I gave these people a call, I had a conversation with them for 34 minutes. It was a 34-minute conversation. And I grilled this guy. I lied to him, said, yeah, my mother's 83 years old. She saw your ad She flipped out. She's been staring out the window for the last 3 days, waiting for the police to come and get her. She hasn't done her taxes. And then I start asking him a ton of questions about their capacity to do taxes. Questions like, will you cooperate with an auditor? Well, yes, we will. You have to. It's the government, he says to me. I want you to go and hear this thing for yourself. So if you're looking right there, this is my Rumble page, everybody. You can see it's this video right here. It's the second most recent one. You can see it's 38 minutes long. Please get in there and listen to it. freedomreport.ca is how you're going to find that video. And eventually this guy just comes out and tells the truth that they do whatever the CRA says because they are afraid of the Canada Revenue Agency. So an accounting company that advertises that you will get arrested if you don't do your taxes used fear tactics to sucker people into contacting them, to hire them to do taxes, only to tell me on the phone that they themselves are afraid of the CRA. And I'm telling you all, the Canada Revenue Agency does not have any authority in Canada. If you have auditors contacting you, get a hold of me and I will get rid of the auditor. I will ban them from your home, from your office, from your business, and even phoning you again in the future, utilizing the appropriate legalese and the appropriate legal letters and the appropriate legal demands, because I am not afraid of the CRA. I know what they are. They are merely a collection agency that gets government funding to make you angry and to lie to all of you. And I'm not thrilled about that in any particular way. In fact, it aggravated me so much so that I kept this guy on the phone for as long as he would answer questions. So as you hear me speaking to him, of course, I lied about wanting to hire him. I lied about my mother being alive and being afraid of the ad. Who cares? I lied. I'm telling all of you, I'm telling you the truth that I lied to this company to get them to answer questions so that I can protect all of you from really bad people and really bad accountants. Yeah, I lied. What happens if you lie? Nothing, except you make really good content. So I want you to go ahead and play this this video for yourselves, freedomreport.ca, and have a listen to just how useless this particular accounting company really is. You know, in fact, I would encourage everybody watching this show, call accountants in Canada and ask them questions. Very important questions. Will you cooperate with an auditor if the auditor contacts you? If they say yes, you got to get rid of them because they don't work for you. They work for the CRA. Can the CRA pull your license? If they say, well, yes, they can. They're the government. Get rid of them because no, the CRA cannot do that. If you're talking with them and you ask them, can the CRA arrest you or otherwise, if they say yes, got to get rid of them. The CRA cannot do that, not in any way. So please go through that video and understand that's why I do what I do. I want to help protect you, but I need all of you to start phoning accounting companies and ask the same questions of accounting companies in Canada that I ask of accounting companies. Trap them, put them on the spot, record the calls, and send me the recordings. Because if you want to give me your authorization to go ahead and cut it as a video, then I will absolutely do so. We can take your videos where you're calling accountants and put them on my channel so that we collectively, as the general public of Canada, can start to fight back against the CRA by making sure that we absolutely crush these accounting companies that cooperate with the CRA. And as for those of you who are in the United States, you know that I can buy your corporations from you. I can take away all your corporate debt in the USA, and you'll be happy to know that I've begun now studying personal income tax law in the United States. It's not easy. It's a very convoluted. It's worse than Canada's system, the way that everything is worded. But eventually I am going to figure all of that out. Clap. If the CRA seized your bank account and took your money, you got to get a hold of me. I'm going to repair your taxes for the last 10 years and get that bank account unlocked and get your money back for you. That is exactly what I do. I will go back 10 years and I'll find every single mistake that previous accountants have made, get you back your money. Now, tonight's show, we've got 45 minutes to review what is really going on when banks seize your money. In Canada, we have laws, and laws pertain to all of us combined. It's the rule for all of society. But in Canada, we also have what's called an act, ACT. An act is not a law. It's a series of rules that govern a set portion of the population, specifically those who have a set job, like the Canada Revenue Agency, to which the Income Tax Act and the Excise Tax Act will govern what they can and cannot do. But the act, it's not laws. And the acts do not pertain to we the people at all. So what will happen here with the Canada Revenue Agency, and this is for all of you to understand how to navigate them and protect them. When I tell you that you don't have to talk to the CRA, I mean it. Don't talk to them on the phone. But you should absolutely reply to all of their letters, because in Canada, they will send you a letter saying, we want you to redo your taxes or whatever, and you only have 30 days to do it. Don't ignore the letter. Hire me. I'll send off the letter saying, thank you very much for your letter, and we need 120 days to get these taxes done for you. And there's nothing that they can do at that particular time because it's a legal command. Then what will happen here, let's say you don't hire me. What will happen after the first letter? If you ignore it, they'll make 3 phone calls to you. And if they don't get through to you, or you hang up, or you scream at them, or whatever it might be, then they're just going to say, we made 3 attempts, we couldn't get through. And then they send you one last letter. And if they can't get you to do your taxes or speak to them, not pay them money, but just do your taxes. There's a difference. If they can't get you to do that in Canada, then what they do is they send out a requirement to pay letter to your bank. Now, they know about your bank only if your social insurance number, the 9-digit code you get when you're born, or when your parents get you one, that is attached to your bank account. The way you protect yourself is have a corporate account where you are not the director. I'll explain that one in a future show. But they will then send out the requirement to pay letter to your bank. Now, it does not mean that they know what's in there. The bank is actually not allowed to tell them what your balances are. But when this requirement to pay letter gets sent out by the Canada Revenue Agency, the banks automatically just pay them, right? The banks are not in any way, shape, or form obligated by law to give them any money. In fact, the bank could just make a phone call saying, listen, you're suggesting that I steal somebody's money and give it to you. And you're suggesting that I do this without a court order. The banks could say, who do you think you are? The answer is no, we're not going to do that. But the banks don't do that. Do you know why? Because Canadians don't turn around and file criminal charges against bank managers, which you have the right to do. It's your money. It's been stolen from you. Canadians don't sue the banks, which you should. I've sued almost every federal bank in Canada, usually for selling my information to third-party individuals that phone me up trying to sell me stocks and bonds. I always sue the banks for about $5,000, typically between 5 and 10, and they usually will settle out of court for about $3,000. It's a free $3,000. I take it and I just sign off. Okay, no, case closed. Thank you. But you've got the right to do this, and Canadians don't do it. That's why these requirement to pay letters go out to banks, and the banks just fold up and say, oh, okay, here's the money, because they know you're not going to do anything about it. You can, and you should, but they know that you won't. And that is why when a lot of you get onto my videos and you tell me, hey, Kevin, you don't know what you're talking about. The CRA has authority. They stole my money. They took my money out of the bank. No, they did not. They sent a letter to the bank that was not a court order, and the bank chose to give your money to them. There is a very big distinction that must be made when you are considering the banks cooperating with the Canada Revenue Agency. It is the banks that are completely and totally liable for your money being handed over to the CRA when that is exactly what happens to you. All right, Clap is saying, specifically told my bank not to take my money out of my account to give it to the CRA. Again, Clap, you got to get a court order, a real simple one. It's called a motion in the courts. You file a motion in the court, you subpoena the CRA, they're not going to show up. You tell the judge that they took it out without a court order and you want an order to put it back, and the judge will give it to you. That's all that it takes. It's just a request from the judge, because for the CRA to issue that letter, it's not a lawful command. It's just something that the Excise Tax Act says the CRA is allowed to do. But we're going to read this to you so that you understand it. In fact, I had a really good conversation with a private bank owner. I'm not going to tell you who, but I am going to say that I'm very, very grateful for the time he spent speaking to me. And he sent me off a letter stating that even private banks are subject to this. And his lawyer sent me over two things to consider about why the banks would hand your money over to the CRA. And I'm going to cover them right now. The first one is the Excise Tax Act. That is section number 317. I'm going to share that on my screen right now with you. All right, let's get this rocking here. Excise Tax Act. And okay, here we go, everybody. This is section 317 of the Excise Tax Act. And I'm just going to read it verbatim and explain it to you. Garnishment. 317, subsection 1, if the minister has knowledge or suspects that a particular person is or will be within 1 year liable to make a payment to another person who is liable to remit an amount under this part in subsections 2, 3, 6, and 11, referred to as a tax debtor, the minister may, not must, may, by notice in writing, require the particular person to pay without delay. All right, so let's cover this first paragraph here. The minister, which is just some jerk. It's not the minister. It's not the Minister of Finance in Canada. It is just some jerk who works for the Canada Revenue Agency that writes a letter and sends it off to the bank. So if you hear what it says, the minister, or in this case, the CRA loser, may, in writing, require, which is to request, not you must do, it's just a request, require the bank to pay without delay. Or anyone for that matter. It doesn't have to be a bank. It could be your bookie. It could be your job. It could be your life insurance policy. So when the CRA sends these letters out, it's the bank who receives it, and it's the bank who says, yeah, okay, I'm going to do what we're told. Let me finish here. If the monies are payable immediately, and in any other case, and when the monies become payable, the monies otherwise payable to the tax debtor in whole or in part to the receiver general on account of the tax debtor's liability under this part. So, translation. If the CRA says you owe money, you never owe the CRA money. They say you do, and there is a difference. If the CRA says to your bank, Kevin here owes money, and if you have money in your account that you would normally let him have, give it to us because we want it and we sent you a letter. Not a court order, just a letter. But it gets more serious here. But it's not more serious for us, it's more serious against the banks. Let's read further on this. IDEM, subsection 2. Without limiting the generalities of subsection 1, where the minister or CRA has knowledge or suspects that within 90 days, a bank, credit union, trust company, or other similar person, in this section referred to as the institution, will loan or advance monies to or make a payment on behalf of or make a payment in respect of a negotiable instrument issued by a tax debtor who is indebted to the institution and who has granted security in respect of the indebtedness, or a person other than the institution will loan or advance monies to or make a payment on behalf of a tax debtor who the minister knows or suspects, subsection 1, is employed by or is engaged in providing services or property to that person, or was or will be within 90 days so employed or engaged, or 2, where that person is a corporation not dealing at arm's length with that person. Here's where it gets dumb. The minister may, not must, by notice in writing, require the institution or person, as the case may be, to pay in whole or in part to the receiver general, which is the CRA, on account of the tax debtor's liability under this part, the monies that would otherwise be so loaned, advanced, or paid, and any monies so paid to the receiver general are deemed to have been loaned, advanced, or paid, as the case may be, to the tax debtor. So it's really terrible language designed to say, hey, we, the CRA, says Kevin here, owes money. We can't prove it. We have no evidence to prove anything that we just said. But because of this IDEM, Section 2 of Section 317, we want you to give it to us. So give it to us. That's all they're saying. And they're saying it in a letter that is not backed by a judge's stamp or a court order. Now, how sick is that? By the way, if you're watching us on Kick or here on TikTok, we get everyone doing double fingers on the screen. Let's get the hearts flying. Let's get the likes going, everybody. It really does help bring this education level to everybody out there. I really do appreciate that. So the CRA sends a letter to the bank. And this act, which pertains only to the CRA and not we the people, or the banks, is what the banks are using to steal your money and give to the CRA. Let's read further. Garnishment, Section 3. Despite any provision of this part, other than any enactment of Canada, other than the Bankruptcy and Insolvency Act, any enactment of a province or any law, if the minister has knowledge or suspects that a particular person is or will become within 1 year liable to make a payment, A, to a tax debtor, or B, a secured creditor who has the right to receive the payment that, but for a security interest in favor of the secured creditor, would be payable to the tax debtor. You know what they're saying here? Let's say you've got a court order to pay child support. And if you don't pay it, you go to jail, according to the court order. The CRA says, yeah, you know what? Don't pay the child support. Give it to us. Let them go to jail, but give it to us anyway because Section B says so. But it's not a court order. It's not a law. It's an act. The minister may, by notice in writing, require the particular person to pay without delay. May, not must, and not can, but just may, which means it's discretionary, which means he doesn't have to, but they do anyway. If the monies are paid immediately, and in any other case, as when the monies become payable, the monies otherwise payable to the tax debtor, in this case, let's say me, or the secured creditor, in whole or in part to the receiver general on account of the tax debtor's liability under this part, and on receipt that notice by the particular person, the amount of those monies that is so required to be paid to the receiver general shall, despite any security interest in those monies, become the property of Her Majesty, or now His Majesty of Canada, to the extent of that liability as assessed by the minister, and shall be paid to the receiver general in priority to any such interest. So, if you've got a mortgage and you have money in the bank, the money has to go to the CRA and not your mortgage, so you lose your house and now you can't make money to pay the debt. Personally speaking, anyone who does that to you honestly deserves to be hanged by the neck until dead. You can't do that because the law says you can't. But when a person who works for the CRA does this and takes your money from you without a court order, they are a criminal. It doesn't matter that lawyers might say, but it's an act and they've got the right to do it. No, they actually don't. This here says they may ask for it, but nobody is obligated to give it to them. And who in the hell believes that they have the power to even demand this of anyone? Here's me hoping and praying that everybody who works for the CRA gets what's coming to them. I really do hope and pray. I can't sit here and advocate for violence because that would be solicitation of a crime. And that is a crime unto itself. So I won't do so, but they deserve it. So for 2025, everybody, you'll be happy to know that we're going to run a series of fundraisers countrywide so that we can have a whole team. I've got 2 private investigators that work for me now, but I want a whole team of private investigators to track down the home addresses of every single person who works for the CRA so that when they pull stunts like this, we can just go and take their houses with contractor liens. There you go. And Tim, you're correct. Acts do not apply to people. It applies to corporations and set groups of people who work for those corporations. That's 100% correct what you just said. Getting a little bit further into the Excise Tax Act, effect of receipt, more legalese nonsense. Section 5. If the minister has, under this section, required a person to pay the receiver general on account of the liability under this part of a tax debtor, monies otherwise payable by the person to the tax debtor as interest, rent, remuneration, a dividend, an annuity, or other periodic payment, the requirement applies to all such payments. Wow. So could you imagine, thank you, Deborah, could you imagine you shot some commercials and you get a residual check every month. And now the CRA goes to the production studio who pays you residual checks every month for every time you appear on TV, and they get your money. Or you have a dividend on an investment that you busted your hump your whole life for. The dividend payments go to them. The audacity of that. But that's only if the CRA knows that you get these things. So how does the CRA know? Because you told them. Because at some point you did a tax return where you said, I get dividend income. I own a house and I have rental income. I was in a TV show years ago, or I did some radio work and I get residuals. You told them that. The CRA has absolutely no way to know any of these things at all. Even if the CRA gets a T4 from your employer, we can write a legal letter to the CRA. We can swear it in like this with a notary public, and we can state that the T4 was submitted in error, and all the tax information on it we vehemently deny. Why don't we do this? Well, I do this for my clients all the time. If I look at a T4 and I think there's one mistake on it, then I'm going to go ahead and attack the CRA saying, you cannot use this T4. It's an error. Then we go and attack your employer and we get them to fix it. And that's another long story unto itself, but I do this for clients all the time. So what I'm getting at here, everybody, is that the CRA is making a boatload of demands. Hold on, I'm just going to get rid of a troll here. Someone's calling themselves David White. They're trying to get my attention. They're not going to get it, and they are officially blocked. Confirm. Bye-bye. We don't tolerate trolls here, everybody. Sorry. This is about finance and commerce, not about personal vendettas you might have. All right. The way that we do this is the CRA is going to make demands of anyone that they know might be giving you money, and they're going to send letters to those parties, your bookie, your boss, your bank, your creditors, your life insurance company, all of these things, okay? And Travis, I see you there. If you wanted to talk to me, just go to my personal website. That's the best place to hit me. Please, kevinjjohnston.com. myname.com. Travis, I'd love to talk to you. We have to stop telling the CRA everything about our personal lives, because everybody out there who tells the CRA anything, the CRA now knows and will pursue it. They will chase it. And the banks, as you've learned, are complete cowards, and they will give in and give your money away. Your boss is probably going to give in and garnish your wages. We'll talk about garnishments in just a couple of minutes here. But this is the most important part now of the Excise Tax Act. This is the part. Okay, Travis, I get it. I see your comments. I see them. Please stop. Everyone, just send one at a time. Let me just digest what you're saying. I want you to understand now that if you go to the Criminal Code of Canada, which is on the canada.ca website, and you read every single solitary crime that they have there, there's always a section called punishment. Punishment. Section 319 of the Criminal Code says if you offend somebody, they're going to shake their finger and get really mad, but the punishment is 2 years in prison. Oh, yeah. Bill C-63 in Canada, which has now been voted in, says if you offend anybody on the left through social media, they're going to get really mad and you're going to go to jail for life. Those are laws, and those laws always have punishments attached to them. So now I'm going to read to you directly from the Excise Tax Act what the punishment is if a bank does not give your money to them. Failure to comply. Section 7. Every person who fails to comply with a requirement under subsections 1, 3, and 6 is liable to pay Her Majesty in right of Canada an amount equal to the amount that the person was required to pay under that subsection. Is liable to pay. Okay, so what they're saying here is, let's say you work for McDonald's, and let's say McDonald's pays you $20 an hour. If the CRA tells your boss at McDonald's, garnish this guy's wages because we say, we can't prove it, but we say he owes money and we want it. And we didn't even get a court order because we are criminals and we have decided that we're just going to act like criminals and intimidate you and so on. McDonald's, if they don't give the half of your salary to the CRA, according to Section 7 here, is liable for the $10 an hour they're stealing from you. But let me cover that one in just a second here. Stick around, please. Section 8, every institution or person that fails to comply with the requirement under subsection 2 with respect to monies to be loaned, advanced, or paid is liable to pay to Her Majesty in right of Canada an amount equal to the lesser of the aggregate monies loaned or the amount that the institution or person was required to pay. Now, there's an assessment that'll get done, so the CRA will guess what that number is. But look. The word punishment is not here. There's no punishment. If you are a business owner and the CRA issues a garnishment order to you and you refuse to steal money from your staff, the CRA will say, well, we're going to shake our finger and we're going to get really mad and we're going to tell you in writing that you're liable. But even the act itself does not allow us to punish you. You know how somebody would actually be liable for that money? Is if the Canada Revenue Agency sued you. And I've got news for everybody out there watching this show right now. The Canada Revenue Agency does not sue anyone. They do not sue the banks. They do not sue corporations. They do not sue you or you or you. They don't sue any of you. They don't do that because the Canada Revenue Agency is not a police force. They do not have authority. What they do is they rely on the lawyers provided to them by the Department of Justice. And the Department of Justice actually bills time to the CRA. So if the CRA is going to sue you to try to get you to pay the garnishment on someone's wages, they would have to hire a lawyer. But only the DOJ is allowed to represent them. And the DOJ is most certainly not going to allow themselves to be used to sue McDonald's for $10 an hour. The CRA, if they were to sue you, you could hire, let's just say, they're not going to sue you. But for argument's sake, if they did, you hire me. Here's what happens when you get sued. You file a defense. What you do is you vehemently deny everything within it, and you challenge them to prove anything. And the CRA cannot prove anything because they don't know anything about you. They only know what's on your tax return. And if you swear an affidavit stating that your tax return was wrong, then they have no evidence at all. So when you file a defense, the CRA, if they sue you, which they don't, the CRA would get a notice that you defended your lawsuit. They would get a letter from me saying, hey guys, Kevin J. Johnston here. You know who I am. You don't like me very much. And I'm representing my client in this case. The first thing that happens is it goes to a settlement conference. Now, this is something that you call a without prejudice meeting. What that means is nothing that gets discussed between the justice of the peace, not a judge, the justice of the peace and us and the CRA, nothing that gets talked about there is being recorded and cannot be used as evidence in the upcoming trial. So the CRA, if they sued you, which they won't, would say something like, well, we ordered his boss to take money away from him, and the boss didn't do it. And under the Excise Tax Act, it says he's liable, so we're suing the boss. That's it. And then I would stand up proudly. I'd have my suit and tie on. Yeah, I'd look a little better than I do right now, which is not really possible. But I would get up on stage and tell the justice of the peace, well, under the Excise Tax Act, it says that the employer is liable for it, but does not issue any form of punishment. Ergo, this is an incomplete law. Wait a minute, hold on. It's not a law. It's an act that pertains to the CRA and those who work for it and does not pertain to my client and does not pertain to my client's employer. So we actually would like to ask you, please, to withdraw this. Throw it out. It can't go anywhere. Now, the justice of the peace might just say, yeah, you know what? You're right. We can't proceed. Or he might say, no, I want to see where this goes. That's when he will ask me and the CRA's lawyer to go out in the hallway and discuss everything. And that's where I'm going to go out in the hallway with the lawyer and say, listen, whatever you're going to say, the answer is no. So why don't we just go back in there and book a trial? Because I want to set a precedent by beating you in court. And he's going to say, well, wait, hold on. We don't want that. And I'll ask him, well, what's the offer? What's the offer on the table? Let me hear it. And sometimes they will say that they're prepared to drop it. And this has already happened with other corporations where I have fought against them in court, where they will drop the lawsuit. I just have to sign off that I won't talk about it, which is fine. I've got a bundle of cases I can't talk about, and that's fine. It doesn't matter because I want to win for my client. So if we can't agree that the CRA will drop the case, I'm going to march right back in without the guy and say, Your Worship, or in Alberta, me lord, we can't agree on anything. I would like to book a full-blown trial, and I'm hereby requesting a 4-day trial. The JP is going to ask, why would you want to book 4 days for a simple, small claim? Well, it's because I have a list of 200 people I would like to subpoena to this trial, please. Bob Hamilton, the commissioner of the CRA, Justin Trudeau, Chrystia Freeland, Doug Ford, everybody who's involved with the CRA in some way, I'm going to subpoena all of them. Do you think for a second that a judge is going to allow that to happen? It would turn the courts into a farce. So they're not going to do it. And that's when they're going to say, well, if you're going to subpoena that many people, which I have the right to do, I might add, they can't let that go on. They're not going to let me book 4 days. So again, they're going to, the JP will then ask me and my client to leave the courts so the JP can talk some sense into the CRA. That's how it would work. The whole thing would get tossed out the door. But because the Canada Revenue Agency does not sue anybody in Canada, this will never happen. So I have just proven to all of you tonight, reading the Excise Tax Act to you, that there is no punishment that the CRA can issue to your employer if they do not wish to garnish your wages. And there is no punishment that will be issued to any bank in Canada if they refuse to hand over your money to the CRA. And that is the most important thing for Canadians to understand. The Excise Tax Act does not pertain to we the people at all. Superstar is asking a question here. How about if you owe GST collected for 20 years ago? Can they take it from your bank account? If you reported that you have GST that you collected, they will certainly try. Yes. But what you got to do there, Superstar, is get a hold of me and I will fix the GST or the HST or the PST reporting that you've done. The odds are good if you're not an accountant, you got the numbers wrong. I will get the numbers right and make sure that those 20 years worth of debts are history. I'm just going to show you now the Income Tax Act. Let me change screens here. Hold on. I'm just going to switch. StreamYard's not the easiest one in the world to switch on. And the Income Tax Act. Here we go. So this is the other section or the other act that the banks will rely on. When the banks when you're yelling at your bank saying, you took all my money, you gave it to the CRA, I want my money back. The banks will say, we can't. Our hands are tied. The CRA said we had to do it, so we have to do it. It's the same thing. Look at the wording of this. Whereas the minister with knowledge and suspects that you owe money, they'll attack. Garnishment, you see, it's the same thing. All right. Definitions, secured creditor, it's all the same thing. Garnishment, here we go. This is the Income Tax Act. Provisions of this act that provide a person who has been required to do so by the minister must pay to the Receiver General an amount that would otherwise be lent, advanced, or paid to the taxpayer who is liable to make a payment under this act, or to that taxpayer's secured creditor apply to Her Majesty and Right of Canada. Blah, blah, blah. Same wording. Okay. IDAM. Here we go. Failure to comply. This is now the Income Tax Act, Section 224, subsection 4. What happens if you choose not to comply? Every person who fails to comply with a requirement under subsection 2241, 2241.2, or 224 section 3 is liable to pay Her Majesty an amount equal to the amount that person was required under the same subsections as the case may be to pay the Receiver General. All right, hold on. Failure to comply with S1.1. Every institution or person that fails to comply with a requirement under subsection 2241.1 with respect to monies to be lent, advanced, or paid is liable to pay Her Majesty an amount equal to the lesser of A, the total amount of monies lent, advanced, or paid, and B, the amount that the institution or person was required under that subsection to pay the Receiver General. And look at this. Once again, the word punishment is not there, which means it is not a law that pertains to we the people. It doesn't pertain to the bank. It doesn't pertain to your employer. It doesn't pertain to anyone. So, when I tell all of you the CRA does not have authority, you understand now what I'm talking about. The Excise Tax Act and the Income Tax Act are not laws that the banks and employers have to follow, but the banks do follow anyway because Canadians do not file criminal charges against bank managers, and we all have to start doing this. Otherwise, this practice of the CRA sending out threats to the bank and the bank capitulating is going to continue. And it's we, the little guy, who loses every single time. Now, what is the solution if the bank shuts down your account? Charge them criminally, sue the bank, sue the CRA, hire me to do your taxes. I'll get them all done for you. I'll correct every mistake that's in there. And once your taxes go in and I have put forward all the